My boyfriend has been secretly trolling my streams with my friends, saying some of the most vile and disgusting things I've ever heard in my life that almost led to me filing a police report against this user. But now that I found out the truth, I am seriously considering breaking up with this guy because I am very freaked out and I just don't know what to do next. Here's what's happening. I've been with my boyfriend for 3 years and we live together. Overall, he's always been sweet, funny, and kind, and we argue sometimes, but it's never anything serious. He always told me that he doesn't really use social media besides Snapchat, or so I thought. Last night, we were smoking and hanging out when he went to the gas station. While he was gone, I kept hearing a weird vibration and dinging noise, and eventually I realized it was coming from under our dresser. When I went down to look, I pulled out an iPad I had never seen before. It was covered in stickers from his video games, and the wallpaper was a picture of our dog, so clearly it was his. And I seriously had no idea he even owned an iPad. Once I got in, I saw non-stop notifications from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, etc. Like, this guy literally had everything. All the accounts were anonymous or spam looking, but they were all tied to his email. I started opening the notifications and I was honestly disgusted. He was commenting on women's bodies, saying they needed to wear more makeup, he was body shaming them, leaving hateful comments on YouTube, and trolling people on Reddit. On Twitter and Instagram, he was constantly insulting people for no reason, but nothing prepared me for what I found next. I like to game and live stream with my friends a few times a week just for fun, and for the past year, there's been this one account that always joins our stream and says the most awful things that you can possibly think of, while also telling us we need to wear more makeup, we should dress prettier, while also insulting our looks, and sending us awful messages about how nobody would want to watch us looking like that. It got so bad that when we would block the account, they would just make a new one. We eventually stopped streaming 6 months ago because of it. I almost filed a police report at one point. Well, last night I realized it was my boyfriend. He has been trolling me and my friends the entire time. This wasn't just popping in and leaving. He would stay the entire live stream, saying horrible personal things about us. I genuinely don't understand why someone would do this to their girlfriend. Like, I really thought our relationship was good. I haven't told him yet, and I've been at my friend's house all day because I just can't look at him without feeling sick. So am I overreacting if I want to break up with him over this? My friend thinks filing a restraining order is over the top and can ruin his career, but at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Holy crap, this is absolutely a good reason to break up with someone. Imagine trying to stream and have a good time with your friends, only to find out it's your boyfriend who's been trolling you the entire time. And if you're listening to this and you've ever streamed, trust me, you probably understand where I'm coming from. Because there are people out there who are so mean and so nasty that it just doesn't make any sense. They will say these horrible things to you and just keep coming back over and over again, just so they can have this anonymous face to say these terrible things. Like, I don't know about you, but that is obnoxious and so uncalled for. But honestly, the most alarming part is that this guy does this to other women online. Like, you're not the only person this is happening to. He's jumping on every social media site and treating other women like garbage, and that is a huge red flag. So yeah, you are absolutely within your right to be like, yeah, we need to break up because this is some crazy behavior. He's obviously got some secret hatred towards women, and that is not fair for you at all. You literally haven't done anything wrong, and this guy is absolutely the problem. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled friend expects me to illustrate his book for free, as he expects me to finalize, design, and sketch out a brand new character out of nowhere, literally in 2 days flat. And despite the fact that I've told him I'm way too busy for this and I simply don't have time, he keeps coming back over and over again, completely oblivious to the fact that I'm simply unavailable. And at this point, I'm really frustrated and I just don't know what else to do. Here's how it all started. Okay, so a friend and I took an art class for a year or two, and we had this colorful idea that one day we would write a book and that I would be the illustrator. And at the time, I was not really all that busy, but I still gave a strong maybe. Eventually though, he got to a writer's block and just kind of gave up. And when I saw this, I assumed that he wasn't all that serious about it and just kind of forgot all about it. About 6 months had passed since school ended when I get a text from him asking if I would like to illustrate for his book for free. Since then, I'd gotten into an online college course and a job, meaning that I'm pretty swamped at the moment. So naturally, I say, I don't know, man, I'm kind of swamped. I just don't know if I have time for this. I really do not like saying no. So I was was trying to let him off easy while not seeming completely uninterested in his project. He gives me the rundown, and honestly, I'm just terribly uninterested. I then tell him it's a cool idea, but again, I'm really busy. Well, the next day, there's a new message. He describes the character to me like commissioning an original character to be drawn, and the most hysterical part is that he expects this character to be designed, finalized, sketched, and done in 2 mother-loving days, which is, of course, impossible. I confirm this with him, but then he only just wants the heads to be drawn, which is still very impossible and definitely not worth the price of being completely free. I explained the situation one last time, and yet he still holds out hope, as this kind of blew me away because this guy really was expecting me to work for free. Wow, this guy's a piece of garbage. You literally told him you're too busy to do this, and still he's like, oh yeah, could you draw this character in 2 days? Thanks. Like, dude, I don't know anything about art, but I'm pretty sure that's probably not going to be possible. Like, I'm sure there's some kind of research or like design process that goes into it just to figure out exactly what you want this character to look like. And this guy's like, oh yeah, I need you to do this in like 2 days for me. What do you mean you're busy? I don't care. Just do it for free. And let me tell you something, and this is especially meant for the original poster. You absolutely need to learn how to say no, I'm not available. And trust me, I've been in that scenario where it's like, oh man, I don't want them to hate me by turning them down. But seriously, if you're not available to do something, don't pressure yourself to do it just because it's like a friend or some crap like that. It doesn't matter who it is. If you're not available, then bro, kick him to the curb, or at least do it politely in a way where it's like, yeah, I have no time for this, so I hope you get it figured out. Because if you're not available, then that's the end of the story, and that literally is the end of the conversation. And the fact that you left this a little bit ambiguous gave this guy plenty of room to still expect stuff out of you for free, which is insane in my opinion. Am I the jerk for kicking my relatives out of my apartment after I came back from a work trip and found that they had completely trashed the place? Because right now I'm honestly very pissed off and I just don't know what else to do. Here's how it happened. Okay, so I'm a woman in my late 20s and I live alone in a small but very cozy apartment that I worked very hard to afford. A few months ago, I had a long work trip planned out, almost 3 weeks, and around that time some distant relatives reached out. They were visiting the city for personal reasons and they asked if they could stay at my place for just a little bit. Now, we're not very close, and I see them maybe once every couple of years at family gatherings, but my mom pushed me a little and said that it would be the right thing to do. And I did agree, but also it came with some very clear rules. No parties, no extra guests, clean up after yourselves, and treat it like it's yours. While I was away, they sent a few polite messages thanking me again, saying everything was fine. I honestly didn't think much about it because I was busy with work and some deadlines. When I finally came back home, I opened the door and I instantly felt my stomach drop. The apartment smelled bad. Trash bags were piled near the door. The dishes were stacked in the sink like they hadn't been washed for days. My couch had stains. My bathroom looked like a public restroom. And some of my personal items were moved or used without asking. One of my plants was completely dead too, which sounds stupid, but it really upset me. Well, I confronted them right away. They laughed it off at first, saying they didn't have time to clean yet and that I was overreacting. And that really hit a nerve. I told them this wasn't what we agreed on and that I wanted them to leave. Not in a screaming way, but in a very firm way. Well, they got offended when I said this, saying that family doesn't kick family out like that. But I told them family also doesn't trash someone's home. They then packed up and left the same day, clearly angry. But after that, things got worse. Apparently, they told the rest of the family their version of it, and that I threw them out without warning, that I was cold, selfish, and that I cared more about my apartment than about people. And now I'm getting passive-aggressive messages. Some relatives stopped talking to me, and my mom says I should have handled it more gently. I feel guilty sometimes, but at the same time, I feel like my boundaries were completely ignored. So am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm kind of at a loss. No, you're not the jerk. These people disrespected your boundaries, dude. If I came back to my apartment and someone had trashed it and their excuse was, oh, we didn't have time to do it, sorry about that, and then tried to argue that, oh, we're family, don't kick me out, what do you mean? You can't do this to us. I would be pissed beyond belief, dude. This is my home and you come in and trash the place? Like, what's going on right now? Because chances are, the entire time you were gone on that trip, they probably didn't clean once. And that is so gross. Like, oh my God, they didn't clean anything, like nothing at all. And then they want to sit there and be like, oh, come on, don't be like that. Like, bro, I'd be forcing them to hire a cleaning service at that point. That is so gross. So no, you're not the jerk for kicking them out. Because trust me, if that was me, that would be like the first and last time they would ever come and visit me. Especially if they disrespected my space like that. Like, that is absolutely uncalled for and that is not okay. Am I the jerk for snapping at my uncle after he kept calling me a girl because of my hair? Because after I was literally just trying to set up a nice dinner with my girlfriend, I finally snapped on this guy and put him in his place, causing him to freak out, saying that that I crossed a line despite the fact that he started literally all of this. Here's what's going on. Okay, for starters, I'm a 19-year-old male and I have long curly hair. I've been growing it out for a few years and I take care of it. I use conditioner, I have leave-ins and curl creams for when I need a little more styling as well, and the brand I use has a little silhouette of a woman on it, and it is technically for women. Last week, my girlfriend had a really stressful week, so I cooked her dinner. My parents wouldn't be coming home till late, so I set up candles, I wrote her a card, and I tried to make it nice with flowers and all this other stuff. As I was setting up, my uncle comes into the room, and for context, he is bald and divorced and currently living with us. He looked around at the candles and said, "This looks like something a girl would set up." I didn't really respond, but he followed it up by saying, "You do a lot of girly stuff for a guy, and with all that girly hair stuff too, you're really selling it." I then told him to back off, and he just kind of laughed and said, "Relax, don't be so sensitive." While I was setting up, he kept making small comments like, "Oh, careful, don't break a nail," and would just randomly talk about the fact that I was cooking for her and how girly that was. And I just kept telling him that he was really funny and just making it clear I was annoyed. It started really getting on my nerves, so I said to him, "Why in the world would I take relationship advice from you? You're divorced. Also, you can't talk about my hair when you're literally bald." When I said this, he got all up in my face and got really pissed off immediately. He then said that I crossed a huge line by bringing up his divorce and that I was being disrespectful. We then both got in each other's faces, and he was saying some stuff about not disrespecting him, and he eventually just left the kitchen. Later on, my mom talked to me and said that she gets why I was upset, but also thinks I should apologize because he's already embarrassed about his situation and I didn't need to make it personal. Plus, she just didn't want us to have any issues. So I'm starting to think that maybe I crossed the line and went a bit too deep, and that in fact I might be the jerk here. But honestly, I'm not sure and I seriously don't know how to handle this. Okay, in my opinion, if you're gonna dish it, you better be ready to take it. Because no, the original poster is not the jerk, and the uncle absolutely deserved to get shut down. Like, bro, if you're gonna sit there and be like, "Oh wow, you look like a girl. You're gonna break a nail setting up all that stuff. Wow, look at that girly hair." Like, if you're gonna go that route, then congratulations, the way you look and your life is absolutely up for grabs. And it's so funny to me because this guy can treat you like crap over and over again, but the second you reciprocate that energy, oh, suddenly we've crossed the line. Suddenly it's too far and it's like, "Oh no, you can't go there. How dare you cross that line? I can't believe you. You're being so disrespectful." But it wasn't disrespectful earlier when you're saying like, "Oh, you look like a girl and you're doing all these girly things." Because yeah, those were insults. He was absolutely trying to insult the original poster. Like apparently those are okay, but no, I can't fire back at this guy and shut him down. Like no, I don't think so. If he's gonna dish it, he better be ready to take it. Because if he wants to be immature, then we can absolutely return in kind. An entitled group of people come into my restaurant and literally sit in my section for 2 hours, causing trouble and just being a general nuisance to my sanity. But after making me run around on a wild goose chase for like the entire night, these idiots actually had the audacity to ask for a discount. And it was right at this moment that I knew I was definitely not going to receive a tip, even though I did everything I could to make sure that these people were satisfied. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so 30 minutes before closing, a 4-top came in. And honestly, everything started out normal, but then they wanted to move tables, not once but twice, but then they started complaining about everything. They said the lighting was wrong, the music was too loud, but then when we turned the music down, apparently it was too quiet. Getting their order took forever because everyone needed just 1 more minute, and when they finally ordered, 2 people changed their minds completely. One sent the food back because it didn't taste like last time, even though they had never been here before. They asked for extra sauces, then they asked for more sauces, and then different sauces. Then they complained there were too many sauces on the table, and you know what? By the end of the night, I had been to that table more than my entire section combined. Eventually, I dropped the check and they sat on it forever. Finally, someone flagged me down and said, "We've been here a long time. Is there any kind of discount we can get?" But I just smiled and said, "No, but I can run your card whenever you're ready." Well, at the end of it, they left $3 on a $140 tab. The last thing I did before clocking out was bussing their table and throwing away a full plate of food they insisted they didn't want after asking for it to be remade, which was truly obnoxious and very annoying. Okay, I cannot stand needy customers. I've worked in the server industry before and this is so frustrating. Like, my God, do I have to hold your hand through the entire experience? You really can't figure things out for yourself. Like, how do you function as an adult? In fact, how did you drive here? Did your mommy and daddy drop you off, or are you like a responsible adult or something similar to that? Like, what's going on right now? That's so weird. And I don't know about you, but them asking to move tables like twice would have probably made me go crazy. Like, there is no way I would put up up with that. So to the original poster, you have my full sympathy. I know exactly what this is like. It is so obnoxious to put up with, and honestly, you're just kind of stuck waiting for them to leave. Because you already know at the end of the day, you're probably not going to get any kind of tip, which makes the entire experience of waiting on them completely not worth it and very frustrating. My entitled downstairs neighbor keeps making false claims towards the homeowners association just to give us a hard time ever since we moved in. So we decided to get some petty revenge by returning the favor and making her life a living nightmare with all the noise we were making during the day, which finally led to her selling her property off and moving out of the condominium. Here's how I did it. Okay, to start things out, we moved from a house to a condo, so I knew that we would have an adjustment. The building is just 18 units, and due to its lovely location, most everyone has been here since it was built 20 years ago. Our unit was purchased from the original owner, who I will call Tim, who had been the homeowners association president and a friend of the lady downstairs, who I will call Barbara. She came upstairs to welcome us with a mention that Tim was always happy to help her out. Now, I knew exactly what she meant, but I shut that down immediately. I said to her, well, fortunately, the homeowners association gave us a list of handymen to come and do these things for us. We like to stay off ladders and we aren't very handy at all. When I said this, the smile dropped off her face and she stomped away. The very next day, the complaints started rolling in. She complained that our dryer was too loud, the water sounded like it was leaking through her ceiling, the vibrations were wrecking her peace. So we bought vibration mats, a new dryer, and checked our pipes, which by the way were all completely fine. We even went to Barbara's unit with her present while they were running and could barely hear a thing. But then she started daily complaints to the homeowners association, and when they persisted, we informed them that our entire proper use and enjoyment of our property was compromised by this unwarranted harassment, and if it continued, we would pursue legal remedy. Well, they immediately stopped. I then checked the homeowners association rules, and apparently we can do laundry from 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. So you can bet that we did laundry every single day. I did laundry for our daughter's family too, and we even invited their small child to come sit on the floor and play drum solos on mixed bowls and pots and pans, all while the washer was churning. Well, lo and behold, Barbara put her unit up for sale, and she finally moved out. Our daughter is now doing her own laundry again, and we're currently hoping for new excellent neighbors because Barbara was definitely not it. Okay, someone pointed this out in the comments section, and I could not agree more, because you know for a fact that Barbara drove Tim out of that property. She probably played the same tactic with him, but instead of her moving out, he decided to bail and say, okay, I am out of there. If you've never lived in like a condo situation or like an apartment scenario, then please feel blessed, because trust me, having crappy neighbors is a nightmare, especially when they're rude people like Barbara who are like hyper-focused on everything you're doing, all because you refused to help her out one time. Think about it, all it took was you implying that you're probably not going to help her out with stuff she needs, and then at the flip of a switch, she suddenly turns into this nightmare individual. And that is obnoxious, like truly that is not fair for anybody. So good for the original poster for chasing Barbara out of that property. That really is a blessing in disguise, because Barbara sounded like a terrible neighbor, and I don't think anybody would have had a good time dealing with her on a daily basis. Am I overreacting for snapping at my pregnant sister after she demanded that I give her my car permanently, saying that I can use public transportation in the meantime since she apparently needs it way more than I do? Because right now I feel like crap for the way I snap back at her, and I now really just don't know what to do. Here's how it all happened. I want to start off by saying that I'm honestly not sure if I handled this badly or if I'm just being made to feel like I did. For reference, I'm a 26-year-old female, I live alone, and I work full time. I don't earn a huge amount, but I am stable and I'm careful with my money. Last year, I finally bought myself a car after saving for years. And by the way, this was a huge deal for me because growing up, I never really had anything that was just mine. My sister is 32 years old and currently pregnant with her 4th child. She and her husband have always struggled financially and usually rely on my parents to help them out with rent, groceries, bills, and basically everything else. And this has been going on for years. Last week, she called me crying, saying they're about to be evicted. I felt really bad for her and stayed on the phone trying to calm her down. I even looked up like assistant programs and resources that might help them out short term. But then she said that she needed my car. At first, I thought she meant borrowing it sometimes, but she didn't. She meant that I should give it to her permanently because she has kids and I don't, so I don't need it as much. She said I could use public transport or Uber since I only go to work and back. But you know what? I said no. After that, she got really upset. She then started saying that I don't understand real responsibility and that if something happens to her baby because she can't get around, apparently apparently it's gonna be on me, and that really got to me. Shortly after, my parents called me and told me that I should step up since I'm financially stable and family helps out family. My mom even said that I can always get another car later. And that's right about when I finally snapped. I said that her poor planning and her baby are not my responsibility. I know that was harsh, but I felt cornered and emotionally pressured, and now my whole family's angry at me. I feel guilty about how I said it, but I also feel like the request itself was completely unreasonable. I don't know if I overreacted by snapping or if my reaction was understandable given the situation. So did I overreact in this scenario? Because right now I'm still very upset about this. Okay, first off, no, you didn't overreact because these people have it completely backwards. Because why should you be expected to give up your car for this lady? It's so funny because these people try to sit there and be like, oh, you don't understand what a real responsibility is. Meanwhile, this is coming from the woman who's about to have her 4th kid and clearly doesn't have her life figured out. Her parents are helping pay for her rent and groceries and everything in her life, and she's pointing the finger at you and saying, you don't have your life figured out? Give me your car? Like, dude, what is going on right now? If that's not projection, then I don't know what is, because that is insane. Because here are like the facts about this, especially if I was in your shoes. Not only would I never give my car over to her, like under any circumstances, even just to borrow it because I guarantee you they never will give it back, but also I would be very hesitant in the future to help them out with anything because look at their reaction after the fact. They're pissed off saying, oh, you could just get another car, or even saying like, oh, you can use public transportation or you can get an Uber instead of me. I need a car because I have kids. But it's like, bro, you need a lot more than just a car if you're going to figure your life out. That's like one of many puzzle pieces that this lady is clearly missing out of the box. Oh, and by the way, if anything does happen to that kid, it is not your fault at all. I can't believe they would say that to you. What a gross and horrifying thing for her to say to you. As if you keeping your car and minding your own business and living your own life is somehow affecting her ability to take care of her child. Like if anything happens to that kid, it's on her 100%. It would be her fault because she's the parent, not you. It's also pretty apparent like your sister is being super manipulative right now. She's trying to act like she has nobody else in her life, no other friends she can talk to, no other family members or like former coworkers she can reach out to and be like, hey, I need help, because she's trying to make it seem like, oh, this is my last option, which is like the classic case of, oh, maybe if I pressure you enough, you'll give in and give me what I want, which is so awful and something that you definitely don't deserve. So with all that in mind, no, I don't think you overreacted at all, because I think your sister is very irresponsible and she has no business having yet another child. My idiotic coworker humiliates herself in front of the entire company by pretending to be drunk after drinking the punch that I made. But after I told her in front of everyone that I made non-alcoholic punch, she stormed off in a fit of rage, as she was furious with me that I had somehow embarrassed her in front of the entire company. And now I'm honestly wondering if I'm at fault here for not explaining that my punch that I made for this party was non-alcoholic, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female and I recently attended a potluck-style work party, and I brought some punch with me, which has since caused a problem between myself and another coworker. And for the sake of the story, we'll call this coworker Sandy. Last week, my boss hosted a party at his house to celebrate the end of the busy season, as well as a job well done. All of my coworkers and their spouses were invited, and we decided it would work well to do a potluck to offset the cost of feeding everybody. For reference, there were about 35 people, since not everyone who came brought a spouse or a significant other. I volunteered to make a punch that I brought to previous work events that everyone said they enjoyed, as well as some other fruit to go with it. This was a casual party with alcohol present, but since I have some coworkers who don't drink, I didn't add any alcohol to this punch, and I figured that if people really wanted some, they would just add it themselves. Well, fast forward a couple of hours, and Sandy, who is a 42-year-old woman, is getting even louder and more dramatic than normal, and she's now stumbling around the party. I didn't think much of it, and I figured she brought her own drinks, or was adding some of the host's alcohol that was put out into something else. She then suddenly fell off the chair she was sitting on and made a big show of it, saying that it's because she was so drunk, and then she asked me in front of all of our coworkers what was in the punch that I made. Now at this point, I was very confused, and so I told her what was in it. It was a mix of ginger ale, 7-Up, orange juice, and a can of juice concentrate. She then wanted to know what alcohol I put in it because she's been drinking it all night and she is really feeling it. But I told her I didn't put any alcohol in it, and I asked if maybe somebody else had spiked the punch bowl, but nobody said they added anything. And one of my coworkers who doesn't drink even said that they had also been drinking the punch all evening evening and was still completely sober. I also would like to clarify that I understand how context can matter. Like if everyone else was really drunk, then that can make even a sober person feel like they're loaded, but that definitely was not the vibe. Sandy was literally the only person acting drunk. She then got really quiet and went off by herself to the bathroom. The rest of my coworkers and I exchanged some awkward glances and tried to laugh it off. She then left shortly afterwards, and I received an angry text message from her about how I shouldn't have embarrassed her like that, and that now she looks like an idiot in front of our bosses and the rest of our coworkers. She's been hostile to me at work ever since and is basically refusing to talk to me. I didn't think I did anything wrong, and most of my coworkers agree with me, but some say that I should have just let her go on thinking that the punch was alcoholic to try and save her from the embarrassment, and I'm left wondering if I'm the one in the wrong. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, first and foremost, any coworker who's trying to tell you that you should have lied to help her save face is a complete moron and absolutely wrong, because that is not the play here. You should not have to lie all because your coworker wanted to pretend to be drunk. So to that effect, absolutely you should have not done that, and no, you're not the jerk. Sandy made the conscious choice, an adult woman, to walk in there and be like, oh man, I am so drunk right now. I'm stumbling all over the place. Look how drunk I am. Like she really hammed it up like she's on stage and this is some kind of performance. And the fact that anybody would think that you have to play along with that stupid, idiotic behavior, because seriously, how on earth is this your fault? You literally just told the truth about what's really in that drink. You didn't embarrass her and you didn't do anything to make her look bad. She's the one that made herself look bad. Like, are you kidding me right now? So it is so silly to me that she's trying to be like, wow, you embarrassed me in front of everybody. When it's like, no, I didn't. I didn't do anything to you. You embarrassed yourself by the way you acted. Because of course she wasn't actually drunk. She just wanted attention. And guess what? She definitely got that attention, but not in the way that she wanted. So no, you're not the jerk here. You literally didn't do anything wrong. You literally just wanted to show up to a party, but instead, Sandy decided to drag you into her weird masquerade as if it's somehow your responsibility to like manage her feelings. So no, you're not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong. And I think that Sandy's an idiot for acting the way that she did. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for wanting to cut off communication with my adoptive mom after she started treating me differently due to my child? Here's what happened. Okay, so my biological parents disowned me as a teenager because I left the religion I was raised in, and I haven't seen them since I was 17 years old. I'm now almost 30, and in 2021, a couple I've known since I was a teenager legally adopted me. I worked with my adopted mom, who I will call Erin, since I worked with her at my first job when I was 14 years old. I called her my spare mom over the years, since I didn't have a real mom anymore. Erin and her husband, who we will call Jacob, have always been good to me and helped me out here and there, particularly financially. The biggest thing I would say they've done for me is that they've bought me a new used car in 2020 for about $3,000, which is right when my old vehicle died on me. Now, I offered to pay them back, but they wouldn't let me, and I'm definitely very grateful for their help. Now, part of the reason the adoption happened was that I had recently told them I was scared of something happening to me and my biological parents being contacted to make decisions for me. With their religion, I knew that the biological parents would, for instance, let me pass away if I needed a blood transfusion because their religion forbids it. When my adoptive parents presented me with the idea of adult adoption, that was a big part of why I accepted it. That, and to be honest, I've always been lonely and wished that I had a family, and I wanted to believe that they were my family now. I wouldn't say we've ever been super close. We live in the same town, and I have usually seen them 1 to 3 times a year at the most for reference. And I didn't really expect the legal adoption to change our relationship, but since they adopted me, a lot has changed, both with me and my personal life and my relationship with Erin. I got married and had a baby, and when I got engaged, Erin was one of the first people I sent a message to tell, but when she got it, she just read it and ignored it for days. Eventually, she told me that she's not ignoring me and that she just has a lot going on, and then it was never brought up ever again. My feelings were hurt because I thought that she'd at least expect some happiness for me or something like that, but I got literally no reply ever, and then she moved on to chatting about other things. Down the road, my now husband and I eloped. If she had made me feel like she cared, I probably would have invited Erin, but as it was, she found out afterwards like everybody else, and she seemed offended that she hadn't been invited. Well, not long after I was married, I finally got pregnant. And again, Erin was one of the first people that I told. Her response to this news was to say, well, I'll probably be happy for you once I get used to the idea. And again, I was very hurt, and I felt rejected and unsupported. As my pregnancy progressed, Erin warmed up to the idea to the point where she was pressuring me to bring that belly around around more and making rude comments about how I didn't come over enough. And let me also just add that she never actually invited me over or anything, but instead she just complained. When I had my baby, she was the only person who insisted on being at the hospital to meet my baby after my emergency C-section when I didn't want any visitors. She has since then only seen my baby a couple of times. My husband and I both work full-time and we alternate days, so one of us is always home with the baby, and whoever is home doesn't have the car. And I'm also dealing with some newly diagnosed health issues, so I have very little energy or free time. Erin has continued to complain that she doesn't see my baby enough, but again, never actually invites me over or asks to come over or actually plan anything. She has even taken my baby out of my arms when I've said no to her holding her and jokingly refused to give her back. She seems very interested in having a relationship with my baby, but at this point, I barely have a relationship with Erin, and I don't feel like making an effort to ensure that they have a relationship with how she's been to me the last few years. She's also told me some weird things that made me certain that I will never leave her alone with my baby. For example, when she was watching her friend's baby and it was fussy, she put it on her non-lactating chest to try and calm it down. And she told me this like it was a totally normal thing to do, and I was shocked to even say anything about it. I had plans to see Erin and Jacob around the holidays, but Erin sent me a message saying, "I can't wait to see your baby." And I said, "And me too, right?" She responded by saying, "Well, of course, because you carry the baby in." And this was the last straw for me, and I finally went off on a little rant, and I told Erin how I feel about a lot of things that she's done and said. Her response was to try and call me 12 times in a row and leave me guilt-tripping voicemails about how she was just gonna sit in the public and cry. She did apologize, but never offered any explanation for the way she's responded when I've tried to share my happy news with her. I got her to agree to give me some space, but she does keep texting me for pictures of my daughter. I'm at a point where I don't feel like having a relationship with Erin at all, but I feel a strong sense of obligation to keep her in my life because of everything they've done for me in the past. I don't enjoy her company, and I haven't in several years. And this is to the point that I've made up excuses to leave early or just avoid her altogether. She's very frustrating to me to talk to, and it feels like I'm always just talked over, and the conversation gets turned to being about Erin. She tends to be very negative too, and mostly does a lot of complaining when we talk, and I find her mentally taxing to be around. Being around her stresses me out, and I hate that since I had a baby, she feels like I'm obligated to see her more and all this other stuff. There is a lot more that's happened and been said between us that I can put there, but essentially, I want to know how to end this relationship with her, or if I'm a jerk for wanting to do that. I would be more than happy to never see her again. She's never felt like family to me. Calling her mom has always felt extremely uncomfortable, and I feel sometimes like she only cares about my baby. Also, she has 2 biological adult children of her own, so it's not like she never had any baby time. I would love to get some advice on ways to tactfully tell her I don't want her in my life anymore, because I typically avoid confrontation, and I am a bit of a people pleaser, so hurting her feelings and standing my ground is a scary idea to me. What should I do? Yeah, your adoptive mom is absolutely being toxic. You mean to tell me that she's like completely neglectful of all these things that have happened in your life, but the second there's a child involved, she's suddenly like, "Oh, let me see the baby. I want to be around the baby. Let me take care of her." It's like, dude, what are you talking about? The fact that you try to like breastfeed another baby that isn't yours, in my opinion, is the biggest red flag you have to look out for. Like that alone is the biggest mark of you saying, "Hey, you're never gonna see my child." So I know if I was in your shoes, I would just slowly start to fade into the background. That's my favorite thing to do with someone who is absolutely toxic and has no place in my life anymore. And from the sounds of it, it kind of seems like Erin fits the bill. So hopefully this all works out for you, because the way she's acting is incredibly weird. My parents won't let me go to a concert that I was really excited about, and they've even gone as far as trying to insinuate that they would take away my tuition in the past if I ever did things that they didn't like. So now I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, because at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm an 18-year-old female and I'm on university break. Last May, I decided to buy tickets with my friends to go to a concert to see an artist co-headlining with another artist that I've liked since I was 14 years old or so. I'm going with friends, and one of them is someone I haven't seen in a while because she goes to school 3 hours away, so this was really important to me. I told my dad last week of my plans, and he didn't really react much and just said okay, but then I told my mom. Well, my mom started yelling at me and told me that because we're Christians, I shouldn't go see a non-Christian artist. In June though, I went to a non-Christian concert with my other friends, and even then they begrudgingly accepted, and my mom told me that it didn't add anything in my life and that concerts had no benefits. My mom villainized and accused me of being so obsessed with music and concerts and made me feel bad for wanting to do so. But I love music, I love playing it, and I even want to work in the music industry when I'm older. I'm doing some internships for it right now. I manage an artist and he's having his first show soon. She called me argumentative and told me that I acted like I knew everything and always combated people when they tried to tell me the right thing. My mom is also concerned about concert safety and says that people who go to concerts do all kinds of substances, they do some weird things and indulge in bad behaviors. Now, there is security at the venue, and I'm going to be with my friends at all times, and I'm either getting a ride there from trusted people or taking a rideshare. She then gave me an infographic of different tragedies that happen at concerts, like with Ariana Grande, Travis Scott, and various other stuff. But it's like I'm Canadian, so some of these things just don't happen here. My sister tried to help and moderate a discussion, but my mom ignored us and got really upset. She basically ignored me and told us we were being unreasonable and arguing. She told us that because the both of us are going to visit our older sister in New York later this spring, we are already going to have fun. My mom does not listen to me at all, and she has shut me down completely. My concert is tomorrow and I still want to go, but my parents will not let me. If I do go anyways, they will likely take away my tuition, as they have threatened to do so in the past. So at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I think first and foremost, you have every right to go and do whatever you want when it comes to whatever concert there might be going on. Like, you are 18 years old, so you are an adult, so yes, you could go if you want to. But in my opinion, I just don't think it would be worth it. They've threatened to take away your tuition over other things, and the fact that they would even try and do that over a concert of all things, like, that is so crazy, I just can't imagine. So yeah, you could go to this concert anyways and be like, oh, I'm gonna go and there's nothing you can do about it, but based on the way your parents act and how irrational they are, I honestly just don't think it's worth it. So if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would go to that concert because your parents sound incredibly toxic. My entitled friend has an awful attitude, as she is constantly trying to tell me what I should and shouldn't do, while also trying to rule my life entirely. And I'm honestly so exhausted dealing with this that at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm currently in 11th grade and I'm about to enter my 12th grade for further studies. I have this Moroccan Pakistani friend who was raised in the United Kingdom, and we became friends since we were both the odd ones out and the ones who are left from toxic friend groups. She was overall pretty cool. We got to hang out and make jokes that were stupid stuff and stuff like that, and it was pretty fun. Every day was like an adventure to me, and it felt like the best part of my life. However, I'd like to discuss about the cons of having her as a friend, as it concerns and irritates me the most. I don't want to talk to her about this, since she is the type of negative person that complains every time and basically ruins the mood sometimes as well. Anyways, just recently, we were deciding on what subjects to choose for 12th grade. I wanted to pursue dentistry, and I took biology and chemistry already, but she kept on insisting that I must take mechanical maths. And maths is split in two different aspects in the 12th grade, namely statistics and mechanical. I asked her why I've already got the subjects I require, and she told me that she's researched dentistry university requirements and that they want maths as well, and she just kept forcing this reality on me. When she spoke, it was like she was commanding me, as if pressuring me to take mechanical maths as well. I know different universities have different requirements, and that maths is a subject where universities praise someone for doing, and yet the dentistry universities are either too expensive or straight up BS. So I wish to go for another university with biology or chemistry studies within them themselves, so that I can then apply for dentistry or other medical field careers. But she simply kept insisting, and I genuinely hated it. It was over and over again. And by the way, it's my future, and she has no privilege to be so rude and so commanding of me to take a stupid subject. Additionally, she kept on trying to hook me up with the thought of getting a tutor. She would say, next year I'm getting a tutor and I just don't care. 12th graders need tutors, and if you do not have one, your test will be so hard, and you're gonna have less time for yourself due to constant studying. Once I get one, I will always ask for homework. You should get a tutor as well. She acted like she was the one making my choices, which makes me extremely irritated, and I just don't listen to her on this aspect at all. I know my grades in maths and chemistry are a bit awful at the moment, but I've been trying to improve them all over and over, and I'm not that hopeless to the point that I need a tutor. She also repeats the phrase, I don't care, a lot, which pisses me off since no one is forcing her to say this crap. She acts so stubborn as well. She also is a little bit overdramatic and horribly emotional. Like, she had a rage fit over someone touching her book once, and a breakdown from how she can't drop computer science as a subject. I really hope she could change for the better, but I seriously just don't want to listen to her like this anymore. I still like her positive side, yet I will always remember her negative side to prevent becoming someone like this. So truly, is this a friend I should keep around? Because at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I think this is not one of those friends that's like good for you or in any way gonna make you a better person. It seems like she's kind of a snob and one of those people who probably talks about other people behind your back, and that sounds obnoxious in my opinion. So in my opinion, this might might just be one of those friends that you slowly fade away from because they truly are not going to help you with your choices in the slightest. Today, I filed a complaint against a coworker, and now I'm wondering if I was unreasonable because at this point, I'm worried that they're going to lie about me, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a fine dining steakhouse. My job is similar to being a busser, but you do have to do a little bit more than just bus. You grab waters and sodas, you refill them, you grab bread, clear things between courses, box up the to-go orders, and pretty much anything the server does when they aren't around. And there is usually at least 10 server assistants on the night shifts. Well, anyways, yesterday I was supposed to work at 10 o'clock in the morning, go on break probably at around 3 o'clock, and then return at 4 to be first cut for the dinner shift. Before I went in, a coworker who was coming in at 12 and closing the restaurant after a break texted me asking if I would close for him. Now, I knew it would take up my entire day, but I said yes and I got it approved. So I go on break at 2:30 because it was slow in the morning, and then returned at 5:30 for this closing shift. When I get there, 2 other girls who are service assistants tell me that I'm not closing and that one of them had made the switch with the aforementioned guy who came in at 12. But I told them that I made the switch in the morning. I got it approved and specifically came back an hour and a half late because I made this switch. I even have text message proof, but they dismissed me. And I wasn't about to argue about it, so I just let it go. But the guy I made a switch with said that he never talked to them. When I get cut, I'm told to do side work by these 2 girls, but I told them that I needed a moment to help servers clean up in an area where their service assistant just left their tables dirty and went home. Not even 5 minutes passes by before they're up in my face yelling at me to do my side work. So I told them it's not my fault the other server left, and that barking orders at me wouldn't make me go any faster. So I left the dirty tables behind, I did my side work, and I clocked out, but complained to a manager before leaving, who took it way more seriously than I expected a restaurant manager to do. She then apologized and said that she would talk to them. Now, part of me only complained about them because I figured they would do it too, so I did it before they could. I have work today, and I'm afraid of what they're going to say. They are not above lying, so they could easily say that I called them a jerk or something like that. So seriously, am I in the wrong in this situation? Because right now I am very stressed out and I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, I am so glad you complained to your manager, and I'm so glad that your manager is taking this seriously because everything they did in this scenario is so wrong. Because first and foremost, you are 100% right. Those 2 girls absolutely would have complained about you the second they get the chance. They seem like those kind of petty coworkers who are out to ruin everybody else's day, and I guarantee you they would have done the same thing to you if given the opportunity. So the fact that you struck while the iron was hot and said something before they could is crucial in this scenario because they have no right to talk to you as if they're your manager. Which, by the way, fun fact, they're definitely not. They have no say in what you can and cannot do for work, and they definitely cannot boss you around in any kind of way. So that for me is a huge red flag. And also, for them to act like, you're doing this wrong, when you literally have proof that you're switching in, like that is so annoying. And I think it would be smart to show that message to your manager and be like, look, I've got proof that I switched in, so I don't know what they're talking about. And also absolutely include that conversation you had with the other coworker where he's basically like, yeah, I never talked to them about this. Like from the sounds of it, it really seems like they're trying to like steal time from someone else and work the system in some kind of way where they come in and do very little while also getting you to do their job. Like that's all this kind of screams to me in my opinion, and that is incredibly weird and so toxic. So no, you didn't do anything wrong. I would sit on business and let nature take its course. You need to show up to work with your head held high and have absolute confidence that this will work out. And if they really do try to lie about your character and like try to make things up, then guess what? That's also not allowed, and in some cases incredibly illegal. Because if these people really want to take that route, then they will very quickly find themselves without a job. My entitled mom despises the fact that I have a service dog, claiming that I don't need it, and even going as far as treating me like garbage the second I get it. And I'm honestly still so confused by this, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I caused my mother, who I lived with at the time, to have a full 3-year-old style tantrum over me getting a service dog. For a little bit of background, I've got a pretty serious visual disability that impacts my mobility. I have no balance, I will walk off stairs and curbs, and basically I used to accidentally hurt myself a lot. For a while, I had been looking at getting a service dog to help me with these issues, as stuff like canes and walkers just didn't do anything. I also secretly hoped that it would help my serious burnout being caused by world events. So after about a year of rejections, my best friend randomly shows up to my house one day, showing me pictures of border collie puppies, and there was this one dog that I just fell in love with. I can't really explain it, but we connected basically instantly, even though I had not met this dog yet. So I tell my buddy that if the puppy was still available, I would take her. I wasn't one to make spontaneous choices like that, but something just clicked. Well, my mother was less than thrilled even at the idea. We were a dog household growing up, but my mother is, well, crazy to put it nicely, and if she gets it in her head that something is bad, she will double down until there's nothing left. So my buddy calls me and tells me the pup is still looking for a home. I then reach out to the service dog organization and I explain the situation, and they explain that it may be possible to train the puppy, but they would need to vet them, check their temperament, and all that jazz. So I passed the numbers along, the trainers met the pup's mom's owner, and I was given a temporary green light. And at this point, I was on cloud 9. Not only would I be getting my own service dog after waiting ages, but for the first time in nearly a year, I actually felt happy enough to get up before 6 o'clock p.m. So I spent the next couple of days getting everything prepared for when my dog would come home. I got the vet stuff set up, training crate, the food, the toys, the whole 9 yards. And it was here that my mother began getting more and more hostile towards me. It started off pretty petty, like my dryer door randomly getting opened, food that I made for myself getting tossed out, that sort of stuff. But it grew to be more crazy, like I had to replace the dog's leash 3 times as it kept getting cut. But eventually this all came to a head when we went up for the day in the mountains where we were gonna decorate graves, go eat, and everything else. And I was just a little bit too happy, like a bit over the top with being helpful and making sure everyone had what they needed. And this led to snarky remarks off and on a few days prior to when I was given my dog's pickup date. And I was just living in a different world. My sister who organized this trip and her kiddos were aware, but my mother was not. Anyways, tensions got raised as the day went on, and everyone was excited for the day trip and the new dog addition to the family. Well, at this point, my mother snapped at me. Around the time that we went to eat, I was just getting dunked on left and right about how I didn't need a dog and how my condition that I've had since I was literally an infant wasn't that bad. And for context, I can't see more than a few inches past my face, so I don't know what she's talking about. My sister, in a moment of brilliance, had had enough and told my mom to shove it because I was approved for this assistance dog and was going to pick her up in 2 weeks' time. When she heard this, you could have heard a pin drop. This 50-plus-year-old woman then starts sobbing, screaming, and kicking like a toddler, saying that she didn't want a dog and that it wasn't fair that this was being forced on her, and how she didn't like the dog's breed and wanted a Yorkie and all of this other BS. We got asked to leave the restaurant and my mom got so mad that she threw her phone down, causing it to shatter, which then led her to the parking lot of this establishment where she was on her knees falling, and I just honestly can't even describe it. The whole kicker to this whole thing, prior to this dog coming into my life, is that my mother had been supportive of the idea, so I'm seriously not even sure where it all came from. She just really did not like my service dog. Even 2 years later, after I had the dog and they were fully trained, it actually led me to moving out, but that's an entirely different story. And now, 5 years past this incident, she's now obsessed with my dog and acts like none of that ever happened. Now, I know it's a bit tame compared to what normally gets posted here, but it's still important to note because this entire situation is incredibly annoying. Oh man, I can't stand people who act like this. They encourage you to do something and then they turn around and be like, wait, but it's not the way that I want it done. How dare you actually do the thing that I encourage you to do in the first place? It's like, lady, what are you complaining about? You literally said to your daughter, hey, you should do this and this would be good for you. And it's like, wouldn't you be happy that your kid has a dog that can help them see properly? Like the original poster can't see anything, what, a few inches past their face? And your mom was to sit there and be like, oh, well, that's just absolute BS. You can't do that. That's not fair. So truly, I'm glad you moved out of there because that entire situation is crazy to me. And I just can't stand the fact that she would actually act like that and then try to turn around and pretend as if nothing happened. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. A group of monstrously toxic shoppers mock a little girl for having a disfigured face. So I decided to step in by giving this little girl a $50 gift card, while also telling her that she's pretty and that she deserves the best things in life. Because this scenario honestly pissed me off, as that little girl definitely did not deserve to be treated that way. Here's what happened. Some years ago, I was shopping at a Target, and I noticed a little girl and her mom receiving all sorts of unwarranted negative attention from other shoppers. People were staring, pointing, gasping, and even snickering and talking loudly about the girl between themselves. The little girl had to have been around 4 years old and suffered from some sort of congenital disfigurements to her face and head. Like half of it was kind of dented in. It was bad and kind of shocking, but my god, she's a little girl. Be better, people. It was obvious that for the girl and her mom, this kind of rude attention was nothing new. The little girl wouldn't look at anyone, but kept her head down and just looked at the merchandise within reach or occasionally at her mom. The mom had no problem defiantly looking anyone in the eye, shoulders being squared up. You can tell she had no problem standing up to a jerk like these shoppers. And you could tell too that they didn't have much money. So anyways, I took in all this while I was shopping, never directly staring, mostly watching it out of the corner of my eye. And I felt such a strong need to counter this BS and do what I can to try and help this little girl feel like every other 4-year-old living her best life, even if it was just for a moment. So I ditched my cart, I ran to the front of the store, and stood in a painfully slow line to buy a $50 gift card, all the while hoping they didn't leave before I located them again. With the gift card in hand, I lucked out and found them in the little girl's clothing section, and they were still suffering from other people's rudeness as they tried to shop. I approached the mom, and when I said, "Excuse me," she looked like she was gonna clock me, expecting me to say something rude or mean. But I tried to show nothing but kindness in my eyes, and I just smiled at her. I then said, "I've had this gift card bouncing around in my purse, and I've always forgotten to use it. Would it be okay if I gave it to your daughter?" Well, this mom was shocked to receive any kindness for once. She then smiled and said, "Sure." Now smiling, I knelt next to the little girl, and while giving her the card, I said, "Pretty girls deserve to buy pretty things." And I said this in my best loving mom voice. She shyly took the card from my hand, and then she turned and raced to her mom excitedly to show her. As I turned to walk away, the mom calls out, "Thank you," and I just waved my hand and I said, "You ladies go have fun." And I then smiled and finished up my shopping, giving every rude jerk in the store the stink eye on my way out. They say the best revenge is a life well lived, and if only for a little while, I'm glad I was able to help that sweet little girl live her best life. Wow, I am blown away that people could be this toxic and awful. Like seriously, what kind of monsters would mock a child as she walks around, all because she looks different than anybody else? Like that is some serious levels of crazy that I've just never heard of before, especially in today's modern age. Like just because people look different doesn't mean they're deaf, so you can guarantee that the mom and the kid hear exactly what's going on around them. So honestly, the fact that you stepped up and gave that little girl some kind of hope was probably the best thing you ever could have done, because this treatment she received otherwise was so unbelievably wrong, as she literally did not deserve that even for a second. Am I the jerk for hating on a supposedly wholesome family that I work for, as I truly see them for the hypocrites that they actually are? Because right now I feel like these people are driving me crazy, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work as a waitress at a family-owned cafe, and there's a situation that's been bothering me for a while. There are two people in particular, a woman who is the daughter of the owner and my former manager from years ago, and her husband, who is just kind of the worst person on planet Earth. Almost every single day since I started, the husband calls in the morning to order food to go before he heads out to work. Sometimes he'll come in during the afternoon for a second to go order too, and he doesn't tip and doesn't pay for the food. He gets it for free, while the rest of us waitstaff have to pay half for our meals, and he's never worked there. One day after I made a large to-go order that took a lot of work, he laughed and said that he didn't have the money to tip. After finding $3, he joked and said, "A 300% tip on a $0 meal seems a bit too shabby." His family then laughed, including his sister who works there. It felt really insulting, especially since he didn't pay for the food in the first place, and his to-go order was $40. Recently, he and his wife have been coming in regularly for lunch. For the past 2 weeks, they've been coming in every shift I've worked. They sit down at a table, which in our small cafe with only 6 tables, takes up space that could be used by other well-paying customers, and then they expected us to wait on them. My ex-manager used to handle their orders herself when they came in, but now they expect service like regular customers. They sometimes get up to grab their own things too, which makes it harder for me to know how to handle them. Should I wait on them like regular customers, or should they serve themselves? They've been tipping $5 regardless of the service or the total of their meal, which feels really frustrating considering the effort other waitresses put into serving them. And again, they don't pay anything. Now, they are very religious, which again isn't inherently bad, but the way they preach about being good Christians and good people feels so gross to me, because it seriously does not match their actions. They treat waitstaff poorly, leaving dirty tables, taking up the small number of tables we have for literally such a long time, and taking away potential customers. And yet they act like they're kind, genuine people who can't see how their actions affect us. The wife was a waitress, so she should know how hard it is to make money and how important it is to tip properly. One incident that bothered me was when the wife took a picture of me at my other job through her car window and texted it to a group chat with her cousin and sister-in-law who also works at the cafe. She then captioned it and said, "New tattoo?" ? And for context, I have a lot of tattoos, and I'm working with a tattoo shop on the side. This felt incredibly invasive and judgmental, especially since I don't really know her. It made me uncomfortable, and I couldn't help but feel like she was making fun of me for something personal. people. When the cousin or sister-in-law are around, they act surprised when I ask if they can take their table. It's like they don't understand how their family coming in messes with our ability to make money. I feel like I'm being made out to be the bad guy because I just don't like them. It is difficult to explain to others because they see them as this nice family, but my experience with their actions has been anything but that. I've been struggling with whether my feelings are justified. On the surface, they seem like a nice family, but in reality, they've made me feel disrespected and judged. I don't want to feel like I'm being unreasonable, but I also know I don't like to be treated this way. The sister-in-law that I work with mentioned recently that the husband thinks I don't like him, which yeah, he's right. Some employees who aren't related to the family agree with me that they're annoying and judgmental, while the family members think that I'm being cold or that I'm the reason for the awkwardness. And you know what? It's probably true because I'm not good at pretending to like someone. They came in today again and I did my usual thing, being cordial if they spoke to me but not initiating conversation. Watching them with their baby made me feel guilty, like maybe I'm just hating on a nice family for no reason, but technically they've never been outwardly mean. So am I justified in not liking them? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, as someone who has worked in this exact situation, I do not blame you for feeling this way. These people claim to be these loving Christian people, but then they turn around and don't pay you for your work. And yes, you serving them is work. The fact that they're not tipping you is just like, oh my gosh, can you leave already? I could be making money off of somebody else. Like if they really want to do that, then maybe it's time for a pay increase or something to compensate that. Because yeah, you're right. You've only got 6 tables at this restaurant and they took up one of them. And that's literally preventing people from sitting down and being served. And I love the fact that you've caught on entirely that other people don't see what you're seeing. Because you know the truth about these people. You literally work with them every single day. You see how hypocritical and two-faced these people truly are. And that they're probably just using their religion as some kind of masquerade to hide how they really act. So my God, from someone who has dealt with this exact situation, you are completely justified in saying that these people suck and they are not genuine. And I can also say from personal experience that once I left that job, I felt so much better about myself. I felt like I could breathe again and that I could actually do whatever I wanted. And also, just in case you're wondering, yes, they're absolutely judging you. They either try to make you their project when it comes to like, I don't know, making you join their religion, where they brought you in only because you're covered in tattoos, or they secretly like resent you because you have tattoos, and so they talk crap about you constantly. And this time might be the only time you've actually found out about them treating you poorly. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. These people sound like the worst people on planet Earth to ever work for, and I'm honestly surprised that you haven't found another job. A toxic van driver keeps blocking the pavement on a road where you are not supposed to park on it, making the entire road incredibly dangerous for pedestrians. So I decided to get some revenge by not only getting him in trouble with his boss, but also getting him in trouble with the police. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, in the United Kingdom, it's currently not illegal to park on pavements other than a few locations. And where I'm based is one of the few places you get fined. For a few weeks, there have been vans blocking the pavement on a school-run route, with the vans on the only pavement available and blocking the view. Cars often fly down and around the corner, as it is a route to sneak in front of a load of traffic if you know about it. So it is pretty dangerous if you're a pedestrian if the walkway is blocked. It started with maybe just one van, but you could still squeeze past, which is not good if you have any mobility issues or aids or any kind of like push chairs. Being a school route, obviously there's pushchair traffic and young kids on bikes and scooters. Quickly though, it was starting to get to 2 vans with at least one blocking the pavement. I would take photos to try and report it, but 2 kids and a job with different walk homes for various reasons meant that I just kept forgetting. This isn't going to be going away anytime soon, as they have parked a trailer on the grass verge for tools and other things. But it was here that my final straw was reached. 2 vans were parked completely across the pavement, with another one parked completely across the pavement over the bumpy lines that visually impaired people use. It's right in front of the trailer with a company name on the side of it for once. I had to take my young kids into the middle of the road to get safely to the next side, and just as we crossed, a car came flying around the corner and down the road. And my God, if we had just been 10 seconds later, we could have gotten hurt. I immediately take a photo as normal, and just as I do, a guy comes out of the trailer and works out that I am taking a photo and starts shouting at me. I'm guessing he heard me mention the parking and slowly understood that I'm taking a photo and this was not a good thing for him. He then said to me, "The cars can get by," but I responded by saying, "It's not safe for anyone else though." But he responded by saying, "But the cars can. You can't take a photo of me. I'll call the police." But I said, "Well, don't worry. I'm contacting the authorities about your dangerous parking." And then I walked off taking my kids to school. The guy had a work top on, and it turns out in the edge of the photo, the van had a logo and website on the side, and thankfully my photo caught all of this and how bad his parking job truly was. I then contacted the highways team with all of the photos, local counselor, and his company. Now, this guy's company is a big company, so I immediately got one of those marketing automatic emails stating how awesome the company was. I replied by saying, "Hey marketing, sorry, but I'm about to mess up your unsubscribe stats thing, and also heads up, this really did happen, and I know marketing teams as I am from one myself, and we can make things happen fast when things go sideways. This all went down this morning with one of your employees at said location, and I've sent it to the following people, and will do what I need to do to ensure that the route goes back to being safe again after this morning. If you can work your magic, here's a photo of the guy and the van." Well, less than 10 minutes later, I get a message going, "We're on it and thanks for the heads up. Leave this with us because trust me, it won't happen again." Well, the police get back to me a week later, as it was a non-urgent issue, and said that they were following up on it as well. Well, as a result, they've not been parking on the pavement at all, and all the kids are getting safely to the 2 primary schools and 2 secondary schools, as this is a key route for it. And this guy really thought he could shout and intimidate me, but trust me, I knew exactly how I was going to handle this from the very beginning. Wow, imagine being so entitled that you freak out on someone all because they're trying to do the right thing. This guy knew he was in the wrong for the way he was parking, but instead of being a rational human being and fixing his mistake, he decides to take it out on this person and be like, "Oh, you can't take a picture of me. I'm going to call the police and make this a bigger deal." And it's like, okay, friend, we can fight fire with fire. This is no problem for me. Like, if you really want to dance and make this into a bigger issue than it needs to be, then by all means, let's do this. So truly, I love the way you handled this because this guy absolutely had it coming. His behavior was atrocious and you did not deserve to be treated this way. And honestly, I really hope he gets in trouble because this behavior is completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for offering my friend to do more chores in exchange for cheaper rent, as I was trying to take into account her struggling financial needs? Because after I made this offer, she freaked out on me and said that I was trying to mistreat her. And at this point, I'm honestly not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old female, and my current roommate is moving out of our 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in New Jersey, and my friend, who's also 24, was interested in moving in. The rent is $2,000, but she can only afford about $800 max, including utilities. Now, we've been friends for 10 years, and I thought it would be great to live together, especially since she's been wanting to move out of her parents' house. After crunching the numbers, I figured I could adjust my budget to cover more of the rent. I suggested that she pay $700 and I pay $1,300 in exchange for her taking on 3 chores that I dislike: taking out the garbage, cleaning the stove, and cleaning the bathroom. I would still do other chores, but just not those specific ones. Well, she immediately got upset, saying she didn't want someone her age bossing her around. She said the reason she wanted to move out of her parents' house was so that she could get away from being controlled. She also worried that I'd use the rent difference against her in the future, like controlling how we decorate or saying that I pay more so my opinion matters more, especially during disagreements. I then explained that wasn't my intention and that I thought it was a fair compromise considering she couldn't pay half the rent. She then told me that I sound like a man who would mistreat her. Now, for context, I'm a masculine lesbian and she's made comments in the past comparing me to a man, so this comment felt especially intentional. I honestly expected her to turn the offer down because of the rent difference, but I didn't anticipate this reaction. I explained that I thought the compromise was fair, and that if she wasn't comfortable with compromise, maybe she wasn't ready to live with others. She then agreed and then said she always knew living together was a bad idea and that she wants to live alone. And mind you, by the way, she reached out to me first about moving in. When I tried to address her comments about comparing me to a man who would mistreat her and how that felt hurtful after a 10-year friendship, she dismissed it and brushed it off as a joke. She said that clearly we wouldn't get along living together because of our personality differences. So was my compromise unreasonable or was she overreacting? Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. No, this is so unbelievably toxic from your friend, it's not even funny. Seriously, you're giving her a break when it comes to rent and all she has to do is pay what, $700 and just take the trash out, clean the bathroom and clean the stove? Like, my God, if I had that kind of deal, especially in New Jersey, then I would take that in a heartbeat and be like, oh, you got it, no problem here. Because the rent in that state is already astronomical, especially if they have like this place next to New York City. Like, in my opinion, this is a really fair deal. You took in her financial constraints and said, okay, let's see if we can make this work. Because, you know, you guys have been friends for 10 years. So you probably thought in your heart of hearts that yes, this can work and we can figure it out. But man, your friend is an idiot for acting this way. And for her to make that comment about you being a man that would mistreat her, like, that also is incredibly toxic, and I'm so sorry that she said that. Like, seriously, that was uncalled for and you did not deserve that. So no, overall, you are definitely not the jerk. You did the right thing by even trying to help her out in the first place, since she's the one that reached out to you. And the fact that she reacted this way before she moved in my opinion, opinion, is a blessing in disguise. Can you imagine dealing with that after she moved in? My God, that would have been awful. Because this friend sounds like a complete moron, and this would not be someone that you would ever want to live with. My fiance isn't being invited to my best friend's wedding, all because his future bride-to-be doesn't want people thinking that my fiance is prettier than her. And now my entire friendship, I feel, is being torn apart, as I'm now stuck between a rock and a hard place of whether I should show up to his wedding alone or if I should stand by my fiance and not go as well. Because right now I'm so confused and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my lifelong best friend is getting married later this year, and when he first got engaged, he asked me to be one of the groomsmen. I obviously accepted and have been excited for the wedding and to see my best friend finally get married. Now his fiance and my fiance have always gotten along really well. The four of us hang out pretty frequently, always have a great time, and there has never been any problems. My fiance has always considered her a friend and has been extremely happy for them and excited about their wedding. His fiance has even asked my fiance for her thoughts and suggestions on certain decor for the wedding, as well as the venues, colors, and things like that. The official wedding invitations were sent out recently, and when it arrived at our house, I noticed it was only addressed to me and also didn't say anything about a +1. Now I was kind of surprised by this, because I had been assuming that my fiance would be invited, given the fact that I've been with my fiance for 4 years now, which is longer than he has been with his fiance. He has been my best friend since preschool. The four of us hang out all the time, and some of my family members received invitations to the wedding. But before jumping to conclusions, I thought maybe none of the groomsmen or other friends of the bride and groom are allowed to have a +1 due to cost or things like that, since weddings are obviously expensive. The other groomsmen are all friends of mine and his, so I called them to see if their significant others were also not invited. Well, it turns out every single one of them received an invitation that included their significant other, and the bridesmaids all get to bring their significant others as well. So at that point, I called him to let him know that I got my invitation, but that my fiance was not included on the invitation. And I asked if there was some kind of error or if they had forgotten to include her on it. Well, that's when he informed that his fiance doesn't want my fiance coming to the wedding because she doesn't want all the guests thinking that my fiance is prettier than her. Now, I will say my fiance is insanely gorgeous. If I had a penny every time someone asked me how I managed to get her, I would be a billionaire. On the other hand, his fiance isn't the most conventionally attractive woman. I feel bad saying that, and it's something I have never said out loud to anyone. But for context to the situation, I wanted to include that here. I told him that I know it's not my wedding, so I don't get to pick the guest list, but I think it's a bit unfair and ridiculous that my fiance, who they are friends with, is the only significant other of the whole entire wedding party that doesn't get to come to the wedding because his fiance is worried that people will think she is prettier than her. I told him that his fiance is the bride, so everyone is going to be looking at her and no one's going to be focusing on my fiance, who by the way isn't even a bridesmaid, so she's not even going to be standing up in front of everyone or anything like that. He said that he agrees with me and that he has already tried multiple times to explain this to his fiance, but that she won't budge and is insistent that everyone will think my fiance is prettier. So I ended up telling him that I cannot be a groomsman or attend the wedding then, because in my eyes, it's not fair to my fiance for me to attend or be in a wedding where she is the only significant other not invited due to the bride's own insecurities. Well, he's upset with me now and thinks I'm overreacting, but I just don't think this is fair. My fiance told me not to worry about her and that I should be part of my best friend's big day. But even with my fiance being completely fine with me going, I honestly just don't want to be around the bride. What should I do? Okay, for the love of your future marriage, do not go to that wedding. Seriously, inform him that you will not be going if your fiance is not also there. Because in my opinion, just because your fiance is saying go doesn't mean that that's permission to go. She's probably just trying to be nice and she's trying to be like, oh, it's okay, just go ahead and enjoy yourself. When in reality, she's probably mind-boggled at how stupid this lady is. Because trust me, if this lady wants to act like that, then you could easily turn around and be like, okay, well, if my fiance's not coming to your wedding, then you and your wife are not coming to mine. Because in my opinion, your top priority right now is to stand by your fiance and not allow this crap to fly for a second. Even if she says she's okay with this, because fundamentally, this is so wrong. So yeah, your best friend is a jerk for not sticking up for you and your fiance, and his fiance is even worse for making this assumption, because quite literally, your fiance didn't do anything wrong, and she does not deserve this treatment in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled manager fires me, but still expects me to work the last 2 shifts of the week. But everything goes south fast for this manager, as they are very quickly fired fired for making me work shifts that I no longer was employed for. And it honestly feels so good that I got back at this guy in the way that I did. Here's what happened. Okay, so I worked at this after-school care place. It was always held at the back of the elementary school in my area, and I would change sites pretty regularly. A lot of high schoolers worked there, including me at the time, and I quite frankly loved that job. And sure, while I did absolutely love this job, I hated my manager. He was a higher up within the company that would stop by and oversee to make sure everything was going smoothly. Now, he was more important than a manager, but that's what I'm going to refer to him as from now on. He was horrible at his job, and everyone I worked with agreed. For example, there was plenty of times someone should have been fired, and he was too chicken to do it. Like a coworker who had shown up drunk to work, one that targeted me and multiple women that we worked with, who was reported by multiple of us, and one that would literally disappear for hours during her work hours. The real problem, however, came very shortly before he fired me, all because I missed my shift. Now, I had just left school, and as I was getting into the car, I accidentally closed the door on my fingers, like the middle of my fingers. And it was so hard, I broke two of them and had to rush to the hospital. On the way, I shot him a quick text that my friend sent who drove me because I was crying way too hard to call him up. Now, in the contract I signed when I got the job, a no-call, no-show resulted in being fired. That is, unless it was a medical emergency. So after I came to work with one of those splints on two of my broken fingers, he came to the site I was at with a write-up that I had to sign. Now, I asked him why because I told him before my shift had even started, but he looked at me and said, "I called you saying you still had to come in and you didn't answer." But I had no service in the ER, so I never got it. I told him there's no way he expected me to come in with two broken fingers, and he told me that it wasn't his problem. So he fired me, but told me I was still expected to show up for my two final shifts of the week, which he had done 20 minutes before first shift, and I honestly was so in shock. Well, on my second to last day, a different higher up stood by that I had never met just to check in. She came over and introduced herself, holding out her hand, and when I told her my name, she retracted her hand and walked away without another word. After my shift, a coworker called me and let me know that my manager had called every single coworker of mine and told them that if I showed up again to call the police because I wasn't supposed to be there for my last two shifts. Now, I was in shock. He had told me to go to them. There was even an HR person sitting in on our meeting that could confirm this, so I went to the human resources department. I then had a meeting with the head of the department and the woman who was there when I got fired. I then told them about the coworker who had harassed me, the write-up that didn't make sense, and the HR person confirming that he had told me to show up for my shifts. And this is where the revenge finally takes in place because he got fired because of me. They went around to my other coworkers who confirmed my story and they fired him. I learned this a few months after the whole debacle when talking to a school friend of mine. Her mom works in the school district and confirmed to me that he had been fired because of me. To this day, whenever I remember it, I smile. And yes, I do sort of feel bad, but when I tell you my story doesn't even include the half of what this manager did and didn't do, you would understand why I feel so happy. Although this may not be deemed as petty, I think it is because I have an attitude of if I'm going down, he's coming down with me. And that is honestly the only reason that I went to human resources. Oh yeah, this story is wonderful because I can't stand people who act like this. Managers who literally are just trying to find reasons to drag you down when they themselves don't even do their job right. Seriously, it seems like any manager is either completely incompetent or they're awesome and they're great at their job. And sure, there's like a little bit of gray area, but it seems like those two categories stand out the most. The people who are idiots somehow work their way up the food chain, and the awesome managers just never stick around because they're never recognized. So yeah, this guy sucked and I'm so glad that you got him fired. But I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, I would have never worked those last two shifts because that guy is out of his mind if he expects me to work even after he said I was fired, since that situation is never gonna fly in my book. An entitled Karen and her husband demands that I hand over my collectible Shadow the Hedgehog figure right as we're standing in line at a Build-A-Bear workshop to have him stuffed. And even though I said no to this Karen and her husband, I was still creeped out by the way they treated me, with me quickly leaving the store as soon as we paid. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 22-year-old autistic female, and I've had a lifelong special interest in Sonic the Hedgehog. It's been a deep obsession my entire life. So, of course, the new movie was a huge deal for me. Adding on to this, one of my favorite characters from the franchise is Shadow, because of course he is. For Christmas this year, I received the gift set of his Build-A-Bear, Voice Box, Chaos Emerald, and the actual plush. He was given to me unstuffed because we wanted to stuff him in store for the sake of the old times. For reference, I was a big Build-A-Bear kid apparently, and we had a family friend who was a manager there and would give me bears all the time. Now, many of you may not know this, but this particular Build-A-Bear is in high demand right now. He was essentially sold out everywhere once the movie had released, and people are still still desperately awaiting a restock. So I was incredibly lucky to get Shadow, especially the gift set, which I'm deeply thankful for. So with that backstory in mind, my family was going out to Texas to visit family right after Christmas. So we took the unstuffed Shadow along and planned to get him stuffed at the local mall's Build-A-Bear store. My younger cousin in high school also tagged along to buy some Bluey Build-A-Bear plushies for her friend as a late Christmas gift. We get there and notice a long line. This Build-A-Bear only had the stuffing and naming machines, so there wasn't any of the other typical Build-A-Bear process things. And you know what? I didn't mind that much. I was just happy to get Shadow stuffed. Since we know it will be a wait, my cousin grabs the two that she planned to get, and we hurried into the stuffing line, deciding to look at the accessories afterwards. It's noteworthy to mention that this store had nothing Sonic related, and it especially didn't have Shadow himself. I noticed a couple of kids staring but brushed it off, and once I overheard a mother a ways behind me in line telling her kid that they didn't have Sonic, I honestly didn't think much of it. At this moment, I was sort of holding the stuffingless Shadow in my arms when a random lady walks out of line up to me and grabs his ear tightly. She says to me, "Ma'am, where did you get this?" And me, feeling slightly startled, I said, "Oh, he was online." Now, I wasn't sure what exactly I was expecting, but it sure wasn't for this woman to, in complete silence, step back and glare me down. No words were said, but I've worked in a fast food establishment that had a reputation of being slow, and I had never received a glare harder than this one. I'm still half convinced that this woman was trying to blow up my head with her mind or something like that. I sort of gave her a confused look in response, because I had expected at least a begrudging thanks, though I suppose not everyone was raised on manners. After a solid 30 seconds of her glaring, this woman walked back to her daughter and husband in line, and the entire time, she continued to glare daggers at me, not taking her eyes off of me. Now naturally, I was getting kind of weirded out. This woman was probably in her 40s or something like that, and she was glaring down a girl in her 20s over a Build-A-Bear. I glanced over to my cousin, and I saw that she was returning this dirty look in some kind of attempt to get this lady to stop staring at us. The line moves forward, and it's almost our turn to get the plushie stuffed. Right as we're waiting for our turn, this woman's husband walks right up to us. And yes, she was still glaring us down at this point. He says to me, "Hey, is Shadow for sale? I'll give you $100 right now." I looked at him and I said, no, I'm sorry. He then said to me, "Are you sure? I mean, are you really sure?" And I looked at him again and I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry." The husband then stepped back with a confused expression and returned to his wife and daughter, who, by the way, the wife was now glaring even worse. We got Shadow, Bluey, and Bingo all stuffed, got those little adoption certificate things, and my cousin ended up buying Shadow a wedding dress, as I had told her about the videos of people putting him in dresses, and I thought it was funny. Once we went to pay, we took one last look just to see that this woman was still glaring daggers at us. So we went ahead and paid, and we got out of there. Now, the story is relatively anticlimactic, but I think considering the circumstances, it is still a funny one. It's definitely the first Karen or entitled parent I've encountered out in the wild, which feels way different than encountering them at work. I've told a few friends this story, and they pointed out that she was probably planning to snatch him had I not mentioned that he was already paid for, which honestly is really annoying to think about. Luckily, Shadow is safe at home and well cared for. I'm glad I have him, and I really hope they do a restock of him soon, just so other fans can get him just like I did. Okay, this is one of those situations where I can only imagine being in that scenario, because holy crap, that Karen was 100% gonna rob you. Like, she was staring you down as if you had kicked her dog or something like that. And the fact that the husband came up and was like, "Oh, I'll buy it from you for $100. Are you sure you don't want to do that?" It's like, dude, go away. I don't know you, and I'm not gonna give this over to you. So good for you for standing your ground and not giving these people any chances to steal from you. Because I guarantee you, the second you put down Shadow and look away, that stupid family would have taken him and tried to claim that it was always theirs. And that, in my opinion, would have been devastating to deal with. Am I the jerk for kicking my best friend out of my wedding after she literally threw shade at me and my husband at our reception? Because right now, my friends are split down the middle, and at this point, I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong or not. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I just got married last weekend, and what was supposed to be the best day of my life turned into a complete disaster because of my best friend, who we will call Emily. Emily and I have been inseparable since college. She was my maid of honor, and I trusted her completely. But looking back, there were so many red flags leading up to my wedding that I just ignored. For starters, she kept making weird comments about how weddings are just a big performance. Secondly, she was oddly obsessed with my fiance, always joking about how he was the one that got away, which is like, okay, they went on one date years ago before we even met, but that was it. And third, she kept making passive-aggressive remarks about how much I was spending on the wedding, saying that it was excessive. Now, I brushed all of this off because, well, we've been friends for a decade, but then the wedding happened. Everything was perfect until the reception. Right after dinner, the DJ opened up the floor of her speeches. My dad spoke, Jake's brother spoke, and then Emily took the mic, which by the way was completely unplanned. At first it seemed like a sweet speech, but then she started talking about all the versions of love and how sometimes the best love stories don't end in marriage. Then she looked straight at Jake and said, "Some people end up with the person they're meant to be with, others just settle." And I swear the entire room went silent. Jake squeezed my hand under the table, but I could feel his whole body tense. I could hear whispers and people were staring at me. And then she laughed like it was some kind of joke. She actually had the audacity to toast to us after that. But at that point, I saw red. As soon as she stepped down, I pulled her aside and I asked her what in the world that was about. But she played dumb and said, "It was just a joke. Don't be so sensitive." But I was not having it. I told her she had completely disrespected me on the most important day of my life and that I wanted her gone. She scoffed, said I was overreacting, but I stood my ground and I had one of the groomsmen escort her out. Well, now our mutual friends are split. Some say I was justified because she was clearly being shady, but others think I was too harsh and should have just let it go. So truly, am I the jerk for kicking my best friend out of my wedding after she literally threw shade at me and my husband? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk. That was so over the line. I honestly don't care who it is. It could have been my mom or dad up there making that speech. The second someone disrespects me and my future spouse like that, all bets are off and they have gotta go. And by the way, that is not something you joke about. You don't stand up there and say, "Oh yeah, you're settling for this lady." And by the way, as a reminder, this is literally at their reception. Like, what's going on right now? That is so inappropriate. Never mind the fact that she's been making weird comments the entire time and clearly has some secret crush on Jake or something like that. But the fact that she vocalized that and basically projected everything that she was thinking out onto the audience and the bride and groom, like that is so crazy and honestly not fair. So no, you're not the jerk for kicking her out. And I really hope this is someone you no longer talk to because this is not a good friend. I mean, just look at the way she tried to brush it off as a joke. And it's like, no, idiot, it's not a joke. You literally meant that. You said it at my wedding and tried to be like, "Oh, I'm just kidding." But there's truth to that. You really mean that. So no, you're not the jerk. And honestly, this lady is not a good friend. And this is definitely not someone that you should ever have to deal with. My mom said that I was selfish for changing my name after I came out as trans to my entire family. And right now she's causing me a lot of grief and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I came out to my mother when I was 22 years old and she did not take it well. This specific scenario happened years ago, but I've been advised before to take stories of my mother to this page as others have felt confident that she fits the entitled parent template and I'm finally acting on that advice. For context, my mother has had the usual negative responses that parents can generally have. She's told me that I turned my back on everything I was raised on, that I was just confused and that Satan was lying to me. And for reference, she is heavily religious. And also, I have nothing wrong with religion, but she is very toxically religious. She even went as far as to tell me that my straight, not safe for work books that I was reading and my Catholic friend brainwashed me into making me trans. And that's just the tamer responses that she had. Also, apparently, after I came out, she has these little index cards with Bible verses and nonsense explanations from her as to how the Bible verse was explaining that I was not actually trans or that I was wrong that I was trans. In this instance, she also blamed my Catholic friend on top of some of my other friends for brainwashing me into believing that I'm trans. Now, just to be clear, my friends never once made any impression on me to be trans. We have never even so much as discussed the idea that I was trans until I brought it up to him. Well, it got to the point where I was comfortable introducing my chosen name to my siblings and such. Of course, I told my mother as well, even though I know that she will never use it. However, it was simply not enough for my mother to not be pressured or expected to use my chosen name. She was also upset that my brother and other people around our apartment complex have chosen to respect my new name. Well, a fight broke out because my little brother has become very much like a trans social justice warrior towards my mother in defense of me. His famous quote being to scream at my mother loud enough for me to hear from the bedroom that my pronouns are he, him. This particular incident, however, my brother seemed very upset that my mother was not using my chosen name as my siblings had all generally started working at switching over how they address me. Even my older brother's making an effort, despite his own unique views that he had at the very least previously used to have. Well, my mother had this whiteboard where she would write messages on it for us right before she leaves for work, generally addressing our chores for the day and so forth. As you can expect, my mother did not use my chosen name on this whiteboard, and that was something I choked down and dealt with as I knew picking the fight with my mother was not worth it. Well, my little brother is a very empathetic individual and knows when something is bothering me. So, beyond my knowledge, he apparently continuously kept changing my name on the board from my dead name to my chosen name, and I was low-key proud of him for being such such an ally, but also I figured it was going to come with a lecture on my end. And you know what? I was right. My mom comes into my room later that night to insist that I stop going by my chosen name and to continue using my dead name with everyone. She told me that it was incredibly selfish and inconsiderate of me to change the name that she and my father worked so hard to come up with, and that it took them months to come up with the perfect name for me. Now, my father doesn't seem to care or have any attachment to my name other than the fact that my dead name was named after him and was meant to be the female version of his own name, and even he's agreed to call me Junior as a compromise and still fully accepts that my chosen name is my new name. I have agreed fully to that, and I think the nickname is adorable. My mom also said that I was throwing away the gift that she and my father gave me. Now, also a fun fact story, my dead name was not actually going to be my dead name, but rather another name. The only reason I wasn't named this other name was because my aunt insisted that my cousin, who was going to be due barely a month or two after me, would be named that same name. Well, it turns out neither of us were named under this name, so I have reasons to believe that no, my mother does not actually care about my dead name itself either, and rather was only caring about me changing my name because I was changing it as a trans man. And while this is just the tip of the iceberg with this woman, I'm honestly at a place where I seriously don't know what to do. Man, I'm really sorry that your mom's treating you that way, because this situation and whole scenario is not easy to go through. I have friends and family who are trans and have come out in some kind of form, and I can tell you right now that that process is not easy. People can walk away from you, they can abandon you, and in some cases, they can straight up just deny that you're a member of the family. And that is so messed up. I can't imagine doing that to someone that you love. So truly, I hope this all works out for you, because the way your mom's acting, in my opinion, is incredibly unkind. I found out that my husband has been having an affair with my mother behind my back, because after I caught them on the desk at her house, spending some quality time together, if you know what I mean, I'm now completely devastated, as they're now telling me that they've loved each other for over a year and that they think that I should get used to the idea sooner than later, because right now my heart is broken and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old female and I've been married to my 33-year-old husband for a year and 3 months now. We got together when I was 18 years old and he was 30 while I was a senior in high school. To a lot of people, our relationship is taboo. However, I've always been very mature for my age and it's always felt normal to the both of us. My mother, who's 40 years old, has always had a soft spot for him, which I appreciated. When she first met him, she told me that I was lucky to have an amazing person in my life. Throughout our relationship, my mom and him got along fine, which I've always thought may just be from their somewhat closeness in age. However, during our wedding is when I started noticing weird behavior from my mom. On my wedding day, she told me she wished she was the one in the gown today, referring to me in my wedding dress. I asked her what she meant, and she just started laughing, saying, "Oh, I've had too much to drink." She also suggested that her and my husband have a dance together during my wedding. Well, I immediately laughed because I thought it was a joke. However, now, considering the circumstances, it was clearly not a joke. Further down the line, she would start asking me how he was when we were spending more quality time together, if you know what I mean. Well, I told her that I wasn't comfortable talking to her about that, and that's when she said that my aunt was curious. She also started asking my husband sketchy questions like that of all kinds, and these were genuinely uncomfortable questions that made me grossed out. My suspicions specifically grew throughout the last 3 months. My husband told me that my mom had asked him to renovate her kitchen, as he does work in construction, and stated that he would be over there after work Monday through Wednesday. Well, when I offered to join him, he said that it wasn't necessary and that it would be boring for me. When I asked my mom if I should join as well, she said I was being a nagging wife asking to come over. However, when he started to visit my mom, I noticed some really big changes in our relationship, because when he would come home from work or from my mom's house, he would never be interested in being close to me. My suspicions grew further when I visited my mom's place and the kitchen looked the same as before. And when I confronted both of them, they said they were still prepping for the renovation. But in this moment, I knew something was wrong, as the worst was only yet to be discovered. Well, I had an urge to know, so I left work early and decided to go to my mom's place and see what was happening. When I arrived, I wanted to see what they were up to naturally and didn't want them to be alarmed that I was there. Luckily, my mom's place has a lot of windows, and you can see nearly every room in the house if you just wander around. When I got to the study's window, that's when I saw my husband and my mother sleeping together, if you know what I mean, right on the desk. I screamed and cried. When they saw me, my mom looked down in complete disbelief, while my husband ran out of the room. I wasn't there long, but ran to my car and drove off hyperventilating. When I got home, I just started to pack some of my clothing and essentials, and I wanted to leave. When I drove off, my phone started blowing up from my husband, my mother, and my aunt, as I'm assuming that she knew as well. I drove to an empty car park, and I sat there for over 4 hours just crying and listening to music. I decided to return to my husband and I's home, as the tears I let go turned into complete anger and distrust. I wanted to confront him. When I arrived home, he was not there, and there was also no sign that he had ever been at our place. I decided that I needed some sleep and thought that maybe he had just stayed in a motel for the night to give me space. When I woke up the next day, I was going to call him. However, I thought to myself that I wasn't ready to speak to him. So I called my aunt, and she told me that he had stayed over at my mother's house to be there for her. Well, when I heard that, my mouth dropped, and I couldn't even say a single word. So much so that my aunt had to keep asking if I was there. I told her if she could set up a meeting with myself, my husband, and my mother, and she said she'll pick me up and take me to my mom's house to talk. When my aunt picked me up, she said that my mother told her about the affair, and she told her to stop. Well, my mother lied to her, saying that she had, and yesterday, straight after I caught them, she said my mother told her that she had been still seeing him, and that I had found out. I told my aunt I was disappointed she didn't tell me, and that she's lost my trust, and she seemed to understand that and complied. When we got to their house, my husband had his arm around my mother, while she had her head rested on his shoulder. Keep in mind, I caught them a day ago. My mother started crying as soon as she saw me and started hugging my husband, and that in itself aggravated me. To keep this from not going any longer, they told me that they wanted to be together, and they hope one day I'll accept them. I literally couldn't even feel anything, so I just started laughing in shock. Even my aunt told my mom that she was being ridiculous. They claimed that they've been in love for a year now, and they started sleeping with each other 4 months after my husband and I got married. The craziest claim was that my mother said she sees herself starting a family with him. After they told me everything, I sat in silence for a few minutes, and my mom pleaded that I say something, but I simply couldn't. I then asked my aunt in that moment to take me home, and she got her keys and got me out of there immediately. As soon as I got in the car, she hugged me and I started bawling. She said everything was going to be okay, and that she was there for me no matter what. She offered that I stay with her, but I just wanted to be alone. It's been a week since all of that happened, and I've been at home alone just crying and drinking. I even had some really dark thoughts that honestly terrified me, to the point that I was going to check myself to the hospital. The worst part is that a part of me wishes I never saw them and lived completely oblivious to their affair. I don't have any friends or anyone in my life. The only person I had was my husband, and now that's gone. My mother and I have always had problems in the past, as she blamed my father taking his life on me, and even faked a note from him saying that it was my fault when I was 12. In a way, I think this is her way at getting back at me for my dad, as she truly believes that I was the reason he decided to pass away, all because I was an angry teenager. My husband sees my mother as forbidden fruit, which is something that I believe men crave, which is why majority of the time they're the ones that cheat. I am now alone, and to be honest, I have no clear direction for what's next for me. My husband and I agreed I was going to be a stay-at-home mom, which is something I wanted as well. I don't have any interest in college and have never considered what kind of profession would interest me, and I've always wanted to be a mom and a loving wife, and expected that to become my reality. I'm also not smart at all, and have no idea what to do from here. What should I do? Okay, first of all, I am so sorry this happened to you because you do not deserve this. Like, your mom is absolutely out of her mind if she thinks this is okay. She literally ruined your life and has already been trying to ruin your life from the beginning, it sounds like. First and foremost, you need to understand that your husband's a creep for trying to date you when you're 18, because honestly, you are incredibly young. You're not mature for your age, and that is a massive age gap. Like, this is not the 1800s. That kind of gap is not okay. And I really don't care who you are. Like, you should not be dating that young. So on that end, it kind of seemed like this relationship was gonna fail from the beginning. But also, you're still incredibly young. Like, you're only 21 years old, so you have a lot of life in front of you. Just because your husband and your mom showed their true colors, and they now have completely betrayed your trust, doesn't mean your life is over and you can't do anything else. Like, there's still so much you can do with your life. Like, honestly, this is only the beginning. But I know if I was in your shoes, I would take this as a blessing in disguise. Because for me, if I found out that my spouse was cheating on me with my mother, I would be like, oh, you're not only gone out of my life, but I'm gonna cut all of you off and move on, and live a better life than you could have ever imagined, which is exactly what you still can do. This whole scenario is so sketchy. Honestly, you got married way too young, and you got stuck with someone who clearly did not have your best intentions in mind. So hopefully you're able to get out of this situation, because honestly, this does not sound healthy in the slightest, because what they've done to you, in my opinion, is completely tragic. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My partner expects me to lay in bed for hours because he doesn't like waking up alone. And despite the fact that I wake up early and he sleeps in till late in the morning, I'm honestly incredibly frustrated because I don't want to do this. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my partner expects me to lay in bed for hours because he doesn't like waking up alone. Currently, we're both not working, so we have mornings and days together. And since I've been on on leave, he started saying he doesn't like waking up alone and wondering where I am when he wakes up. Our apartment is pretty small, so I could really only be in the kitchen, the living room, or the bathroom, honestly. It's not like I just leave and I'm unreachable for the day or something like that. I am an early riser naturally, and he is not and is notoriously hard to wake up. I don't think it's my responsibility to rub his back so he can wake up nicely, but he doesn't think it's too much to ask. He is also adamant about me being there when he wakes up. Calling me back into bed is not good enough because the bad feelings of waking up alone has already happened. So in his mind, it's too late then. I have told him several times that this expectation is unrealistic, and if I wake up at 6:30 and he sleeps till 11:30, that is 4 hours of my day completely wasted. Also, I want coffee, I want breakfast, and it's like, are you kidding me? Is this not normal? This morning, I woke up at 7:30, laid in bed until 8:15, then got up to feed the cat and dog and started cleaning up around the house for a bit. At 9:30, he starts making noise, and I go in and lay with him, and he is once again upset that he woke up alone. Then he asked me what my plan for the day was, and I said, well, clean the house and go get some groceries to cook something. He then got upset at this and said I just plan every day, and he can't make any plans because I'm selfish, and I don't wait for him so we can plan together. I told him that my plan was just tasks, and he can add whatever he wants us to do. I tried to get him to tell me what an ideal day in his mind was, and what a perfect girlfriend would do, but he refused to give me any examples, and then just kept saying that I don't care about him. Basically, it led to a big argument, and I told him that we were just not compatible, and I will never meet his expectations. So seriously, am I overreacting, or is this insanely unreasonable? Because right now, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Oh yeah, this is completely unreasonable. This is so weird. Your partner needs to grow up and realize that, hey, you can live your own life and do stuff without him. Obviously, the thought of him being like, oh yeah, I want to wake up next to my girl, like this is really something that I enjoy, like that in and of itself is kind of sweet and obviously like very wholesome. But he's taking it to such an extreme that he's like, no, you need to stay in bed while I sleep in. And honestly, I'm right there with you. There's no reason you should have to do that. Like that's some like obnoxiously controlling behavior, and I just would hate that if I was in your shoes. So no, you're definitely not overreacting. Your boyfriend's being weird, and honestly, I don't blame you for getting frustrated, because what he's asking is completely out of line. Am I the jerk for deserting my girlfriend on a trip that I gifted to her after she went out of her way to constantly complain the entire time? Because right now, I am still upset, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my long-distance girlfriend happened to be here while a band she loves played 4 hours away. So I surprised her with a trip to see them. I got train tickets and a hotel, ensuring that we stayed in the best part of town, and it was easy to get around. And I also told her a month ahead of time so that we could have time to plan. I told her our schedule for the arrival day and the day of the show, what times and places that things were happening. The night before, she brings up the plan and I repeat all of it to her, but immediately she starts challenging it. She says to me, that's not a plan, what trains are we taking? Now, I knew we had many options and I would just check Google on arrival, but nevertheless, she proceeds to look up all of the things that I had already researched, and then proceeded to question my times because wrong sources say something else, as well as ruining the surprise that there is a second band. We had 4 hours from arrival to the venue opening. My plan was to drop off things at the hotel, go to the venue area, eat some food, and see a show. Well, she says that she will need an hour to prepare at the hotel, and I accept that. She says she will be wearing a revealing outfit and doesn't want to be wearing it everywhere. When we arrive in the city, I step aside to look at Google, but she doesn't even let me look before she starts giving instructions on where to go. She's in a busy crowd talking in a low voice, so I can't make out what she's saying. I tell her to speak up, and she says some track numbers. I then go to where there's a sign with numbers, but it's wrong. And then she blames me for misunderstanding. We find a train and get to our station, and she's still giving instructions that I can't hear. I then see an exit with a street name that I know is close to the hotel, and I decide to take it. She annoyedly says, why did you take this? It wasn't the right one. And I'm like, how is it wrong? It's the right street. We'd be walking the same distance underground. She continues pointing out how other exits were more right as we walk past them. We get to the hotel room and sit down to cool off, and I then take my pants off, expecting her to start preparing soon, but also let her have a moment to chill. After 45 minutes, she has shown absolutely no initiative. I ask if she's starting soon, but she says no. She wants to go get food. I ask why she didn't say this instead of just sitting here, but she then blames me for taking off my pants, as if I couldn't simply put them back on again. I then say that I thought we agreed to eat by the venue, but according to her, not wanting to wear the outfit everywhere implied that we wouldn't. So wearing the outfit on the way to the venue is fine, but making me stop on the way isn't. I mean, what's going on right now? At this point, I had just had enough. I had put together this sweet gift for her. I'd made sure we had time to make a plan, and I've been flexible to accommodate her, and all I hear is complaining. So So I got my ticket, I gave her the key, and I said that she can do things her way, and then I left. I then walked around for a bit. I knew I was being dramatic, and I just didn't want this situation. She then calls me up, but I didn't pick up. Then, after receiving some awful text messages from her, I went to the venue by myself, and I didn't look back. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because I honestly don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. It sounds like your girlfriend is being obnoxious. Seriously, if my significant other was like, hey, I planned out this really cool thing with your favorite band, and did it in such a way where I literally don't have to worry about anything, I wouldn't then go around and be like, oh, you did this wrong. This is not the street we're supposed to take. What are you doing? Or even begin to blame them for stuff going wrong that I agreed to do in the first place. Like, talk about being so ungrateful for what she was given. So yeah, your girlfriend's being super unreasonable, and honestly, I can see this all falling apart very badly. Because what you did for her was very kind, and you did not deserve this kind of treatment in the slightest. I'm considering breaking up with my boyfriend after he lost his job and has shown left and right that he is not responsible in any relationship. But right now, he's saying that I'm being selfish and that I should support him through his hard times, leaving me wondering if I'm making the right decision or not. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend and I have been together for 4 months. He's 28 years old and I'm 26. Over the past couple of months, he shared that he has ADHD and that he is now medicated. He is extremely smart, but can come off as arrogant and outspoken. He has had problems with authority, following directions, and generally has a rebellious nature. As an adult, he has accumulated a warrant from a criminal misdemeanor charge, a suspended license, and a major debt. Initially, I looked past these things. I was apprehensive, but realized that I've had my own challenges in the last few years that I'm also working on, and he's not a bad person for making mistakes. I mean, I'm not perfect and would also want compassion. I've shared multiple times that I am wary of the future with him, but I am willing to see where things go. We've had discussions about his plan to save money and tackle each of these issues within the next year or so. In the meantime, we've gotten along great. We fell in love and he's my best friend. We have an amazing connection and he makes me feel so loved and happy. However, 2 months ago, he lost his job. Now his whole plan is out the window because whatever he had saved before is gone and he is now in survival mode. And this obviously prolongs the timeline of him getting back on his feet. I then found out that he has lost almost every job he's ever had because of his smart mouth and simply not respecting his boss. The last couple of months have been a real test for me to look past these things when considering the lifestyle that I want for myself and whether he aligns with it or draws me farther away. He is currently an unreliable and undisciplined person going through a difficult time mostly due to bad decisions. I've basically decided that I don't see a future with him based on his current situation and have mentioned that he should focus on getting back on his feet first and tackling some of his issues before considering dating me or anyone right now. Is it shallow of me to want a man who has some stability? I mean, I need to be able to trust that my partner can solve and handle his own messes. I am a very avoidant person and I like to play things safe, and he feels like such a risk. I am nervous about the future and I don't want to get stuck with someone who isn't responsible. What would be the point of dating someone if I feel that we aren't in agreement on core values and beliefs regarding finances or even socially acceptable behaviors? His stance is that I am superficial for not loving him for who he is or even wanting to support him through this hard time. He believes that I'm overthinking the future and should enjoy our time together now, making my decision if something arises. While this is a good point, in my opinion, why would I wait until I'm in a bad place to cut him out of my life if I can avoid it right now? What should I do? Okay, I've got to be completely honest here because I don't think your boyfriend is a winner at all. And I don't say that lightly because seriously, let's look at the evidence here. This guy is a literal criminal. He's got a warrant out for his arrest and for having some debts. Like seriously, this guy's proving that he doesn't have any capabilities of being a good partner. He's even got a suspended license for crying out loud. Like this guy does not sound like a good person at all. So in that regard, you have every right to step away and be like, listen, this is not working and I think you need to get your life figured out before you start dating anybody. And I honestly can't stand the fact that you're like, oh, he's such a good person, he deserves a second chance. And yeah, he does deserve a second chance, but he's got to get his crap figured out first. That second chance does not mean that you have to be the one to do it. Like that overarching idea absolutely counts and I completely agree with you, but you should not have to sacrifice your happiness or stability to make that happen. That literally has to come from him in my opinion, and I really believe that. So honestly, I don't blame you if you do want to break up with your boyfriend, because in my opinion, he does not sound like a good one in the first place. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that if he wants a cleaner home, we can either do it together at the end of the day, or he can do it himself? Because right now he's implying that I should take all of it on, and at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband regularly expresses that he wants a cleaner, more organized home, but refuses refuses to come up with any plan where we work together to make that happen. He just wants me to magically fit more cleaning into my day. For context, he works from home and works a very flexible position where he can take breaks mostly at his leisure. He isn't on the phone or in constant meetings. He can fit in workouts, walk with a dog, showers sometimes multiple times a day, and he cooks dinner every night, which I'm incredibly grateful for. Now, I work part-time nights and weekends. My commute is about 45 minutes long, and my shifts in the weekends last 10 hours. During the week, I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning preparing for the children's days. They do hybrid schooling, where they do in-person learning Tuesday through Thursday in the morning, all the way up until lunchtime, and then are homeschooled the rest of the time. Mondays, I attend a homeschool co-op that lasts most of the day. On the in-person days, I am driving them around all morning as they go to 2 different places, and spend the few hours they are gone running errands, taking care of the animals, taking a shower, doing chores, etc. Fridays is their extracurricular day where they do horseback riding and skating, so I'm gone all day doing that. Now, I do plenty of cleaning and chores, but I am doing them with the kids. They help me with everything, but in turn, it takes twice as long because they're only 4 and 6 years old, and they're still learning to help with everything. He thinks that because he can get more done on the weekends than I do during the week, that I'm somehow not doing enough. But he also stays home most weekends, lets the kids watch hours and hours of TV, and doesn't have them help. So the way we go about the day is very different. I've told him I'm already going from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night without ever taking a rest. I'm going crazy doing as much as I can. I have a planner where every page is full, showing all the things that I've done, be it with homeschooling or chores, and I can't fit anything else in. I have said if he wants more done, we can either work together as a team at night to do it, or he can replace one of the leisure activities that he does during his workday with more cleaning when everyone else isn't home. Well, he says that I'm the jerk for not being able to rearrange my day just to better fit in chores, and that he works full-time and makes dinner, and at the end of the night wants to relax, and that cleaning doesn't need to be a group project. I feel like I also want to relax at the end of the day and already start my night much later than he does. But even then, I would be willing to do it as a team. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, the fact that this guy is not willing to help out and clean at all, in my opinion, is so unacceptable. This has to be a team effort because yes, you're both very busy, but it really sounds like you're the only one cleaning the house and he's sitting there trying to be like, oh, you need to do more. And that is so unacceptable in my opinion. Like that really is super annoying. So no, you're not the jerk here because in my opinion, the way he's acting is incredibly selfish. An entitled customer loses his mind after we inform him that he can't return an item that's 12 years old because now he's demanding to talk to a supervisor, and I'm honestly so annoyed by this entire scenario. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a call center for a certain members-only bulk store chain, specifically in the online branch. One of the perks we offer our customers is an almost comically lenient return policy. We started limiting certain electronics to 90 days from the date of delivery back in 2016, and this will be important later on. And our return teams needs to look over and approve any returns for orders over 2 years old, but by and large will accept just about anything. Now, I like this policy. It's a lot easier for me to just process a return than it is to argue with the customer for 20 minutes about how no sir, it is not our fault that you didn't think to open the box until well after 90 days, and now the computer doesn't work. I can get you over to warranty, but beyond that, my hands are tied. The customers like this policy because it means they basically can return stuff whenever they want within reason. Returns usually approves the 2+ year requests unless it's something egregiously dumb, and the key word there is within reason. Now, it's early into my shift, and I don't think I'd ever had my first break at this point. Phones are dead at this time of day, as is typical once the holiday order rush and the post-holiday return rush subsides. So I'm sitting there trying to figure out what in the world 71 down on my crossword puzzle is when a call finally comes through. I snap to attention, give my spiel, and I ask the guy what he needs. He then says to me, "Nobody came to pick up the stove I'm returning. They delivered the new one and took the gas range, but I still have an electric one to return." I then said, "Well, I'm sorry to hear that, sir, but I'd be happy to see what's going on." I then checked the logistics scheduler, and the only return this guy has is for the one that got picked up. I ask him if he has the order number for the item being returned, and of course he doesn't. I pull up his order history and I ask him when he ordered the item. And for a bit of context, the order history that we see on our end only goes back to about 2017, but it's then that this guy says that he thinks he bought it in August of 2013. So it's then that I realize that it's going to be one of those calls because this honestly is about to get really messy. I'm honestly not looking forward to having to fart around in the DOS system to try and find this guy's order number, but at this point I'm thinking he just had an old phone number on the order order, and that's why his pickup isn't in our scheduler with the rest of his orders. After about 20 minutes of checking every single membership number on file in our DOS system, as the guy claimed he had never changed his membership number at any point, which by the way he was wrong, as well as his multiple assertions that the last people just pulled it right up, I finally find the order. Well, lo and behold, the return is canceled because our returns team didn't think refunding a 12-year-old stove because it stopped working is in the spirit of our return policy, since it's highly unlikely the issue is caused by a manufacturing defect at this point. Now, I could go on about planned obsolescence and how things used to be built to last, but unfortunately, 12 years is honestly a pretty hefty shelf life, especially for a home appliance these days, and it's definitely well out of any warranty that we have. I explain this to the customer as gingerly as I can, and he demands to know why we didn't just tell him this years ago. He goes on to scream, "I'm grandfathered into your 90-day policy, aren't I? When did that change? Why didn't you tell me years ago that you were not going to accept my return anymore? I need to escalate this right now." I try to explain to him that these sorts of situations are handled on a case-by-case basis, and it's less that there's a hard limit now, and more that a 12-year-old appliance starting to have issues can't really be considered a manufacturing defect that we're somehow obligated to refund you for. Well, even though I explained it, he is still not having it and asking for a supervisor. So I just say, "Okay, you got it, sir." I kick him over to my supervisor and I move on, but not before he gives me this final gem. He says to me, "If I had known you wouldn't accept my return now, I would have returned this years ago." So basically, he just admitted he wanted us to pay him to haul away his junk rather than actually thinking his stove reaching the end of its lifespan was a manufacturer defect. It's like, dear God, I'm so glad this job pays well, because customers like this are truly ridiculous. Oh my gosh, this is so annoying. Dude, your stove is 12 years old. He can't possibly think he's still gonna get a return for it after what, 12 years? That is seriously some entitled behavior from a customer I have not heard of in a long time. But either way, good for you for the way you handled this, because this guy was completely out of his mind. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for uninviting someone from my wedding after she just spent $2,000 on my bachelorette party? Because right now, some of my friends are saying I was being a little bit too harsh. But at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I had my bachelorette party last month, and this was an international trip with 13 girls. Now, most of them live in City 1, where I grew up but no longer reside. I now live in City 2, which is a short flight or about a 6-hour drive away. One of the girls, who we will call Rachel, was a high school friend I reconnected with 2 years ago after getting engaged. She recently started dating someone new in City 2, which is my city, and she spent the entire trip FaceTiming him at events, the club, the beach, the yacht, while getting ready, even in the shower. Worst of all, she dragged other girls into her calls, even though they barely know her, let alone him. She also FaceTimed while people were changing or while she herself was getting ready and not wearing a lot of clothes. At one point, she got into an argument with her boyfriend and handed the phone to her roommate, who we will call Jamie. And Jamie, by the way, had never met him and was essentially forced into this fight. Well, Jamie, being fed up, hung up and later asked to switch rooms. When she wasn't FaceTiming, she was talking about him nonstop. At dinner, she kept blurting out, "I'm moving to city number 2 and we're gonna be neighbors." But when I asked about her kids, she vaguely said she'd fly or drive home every weekend. Now, this is a mom of 2 with 2 different dads moving for a boyfriend of 1 month. One night during a private chef dinner, the power went out and Rachel's phone died, and everybody withheld their portable chargers. She then booked a hotel on someone else's phone, packed her bags, and left to charge her phone. And another woman, who we will call Mandy, was being way too nice and walked with her. On the way, Rachel suddenly desperately needed to call her kids, which was hilarious since she hadn't mentioned them once. Unfortunately, when the power came back, so did Rachel. Later, while we were playing Bachelorette games, she blurted out some awful slurs during Mad Libs. And when that happened, I snapped and the room went silent. We had a shared photo album for group pictures, and Rachel uploaded hundreds of selfies, thirst traps, and FaceTime screenshots, texts about how her boyfriend was the one, and even mirror selfies from a store where she was trying on clothing without underwear on. One dress even had a cut in it, and trust me, it was showing way more than it should have. My fiance was getting updates from some of the girls, and he even asked Jamie to talk to Rachel, and he himself sent her a message about being more self-aware and to please stop FaceTiming this guy. But still, nothing changed. After the trip, I sent Rachel a message thanking her for coming, but also making it very clear that her behavior was completely unacceptable. And I also told her that she was no longer invited to my wedding. Well, she read it and she never responded. Some friends think that I was harsh since she spent time and money to celebrate me. But just to be clear, I'm not cutting her off because I didn't feel like the center of attention. This is about how deeply uncomfortable she made everybody. Since I got back, I've heard even more crazy stories that the girls kept from me because they saw how upset I was. So seriously, am I the jerk for uninviting her? Because right now I honestly don't know what to do. I don't think you did anything wrong by excluding her from your wedding. Like seriously, this lady sounds super obnoxious. She basically ruined your bachelorette party, and she really was gonna be like a problem pretty much no matter what. Because the way she went about doing this was so obnoxious. I can understand doing this at like the end of the day or maybe like checking in every once in a while, but literally it sounds like every single moment was spent around like FaceTiming this guy. And the part about her doing it while people were changing or when she was completely undressed, like that in my opinion is just really invasive, and that is not okay. So no, I don't blame you for not inviting her to your wedding because that probably would have happened there as well. And that sounds like some unnecessary drama that I would never want to deal with. Today I was incredibly insulted after my hospital roommate called me ugly. And even though she said it in Russian, which I can understand, she assumed that I wouldn't know exactly what she was saying about me. So I decided to expose her and embarrass her in a way that I'm sure she will never forget. Here's what happened. When I was a sophomore in college, my appendix ruptured, and I spent a couple of weeks in the hospital off and on dealing with various infections and surgery. During my first hospital stay, I shared a room with an older Russian woman who had just had a gastric bypass. I never said a word to her, and I just kind of kept to myself watching TV and chatting with my mom when she came to visit. I felt kind of bad that I had to walk my IV pole past her to use the bathroom because I didn't want to disturb her. So I tried to be as quiet as possible and limit the number of trips that I made. This lady had the habit of talking really loudly on the phone to her daughter, and since she heard me speaking English to my mom, I guess she assumed that I couldn't understand her. Well, I had just started learning Russian as a freshman, so I didn't understand everything that she was saying, but I could gather bits and pieces. One night, she's on the phone with her daughter, and she says something to the tune of, "I don't have the room to myself anymore. I'm sharing it with this girl, and she's really ugly." Now, obviously, I didn't look great because I had a ruptured appendix, and I was just trying to stay alive at that point, and I didn't really care what she thought of me. It just bothered me that she thought it was okay to talk trash about me to her daughter in front of me just because she thought I couldn't understand her. Plus, on top of that, I was bored, and I wanted the satisfaction of making her eat her words. So the next time I was wheeling my IV pole past her to use the bathroom, I put on my sweetest smile and said in my best Russian accent, "Excuse me." Well, after that, she didn't really say anything to me, but she also never called her daughter again while I was there because she knew I could understand every single word coming out of her stupid mouth. Wow, that really is such a toxic thing to do, especially when you consider the fact that we live in a day and age where people learn multiple languages all the time. There are so many programs out there that can help you learn another language that nowadays it just doesn't seem like a good idea to talk trash about someone in a language that you think they can't speak. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but it really seems like that would be a bad idea regardless of the circumstance. So good for you for calling that lady out, because honestly, nobody deserves to be treated that way, regardless of if you think they can understand you or not. My coworker gets mistreated by customers in a way that's honestly completely unreasonable and totally out of nowhere, leaving me and my coworkers incredibly confused. Here's what happened. So I currently work as a self-checkout cashier in a chain store. One night, I was helping a middle-aged couple when they were having difficulty using the produce menu. Their interactions with me were pleasant, but a remark they made about one of my fellow cashiers, let's call her Shelly for the sake of the story, completely caught me off guard. They said that she was mean and bizarrely that she should be working in a prison, and those were the words they used verbatim. For reference, Shelly is a relatively new coworker, but in the time that I've worked with her, I've known her to be one of the most pleasant and easygoing people in my department. So to say I was flabbergasted to hear that was an understatement. I just gave a non-committal "oh, I see" response and finished helping them. After they left, I went and told Shelly what they said about her, and she was just as surprised as I was. She had assisted them in purchasing some cigarettes a few minutes prior to me helping them, and she simply couldn't figure out what went down in their interactions that would make them say that about her. I mean, I was about 2 feet away from them for most of that interaction too, and Shelly was nothing but her usual sweet self. A little bit later, she and I and other coworkers who Shelly told it to came to the conclusion that the customers must have been salty about the fact that they had to get ID'd for the cigarettes. We get a lot of complaints about it, but it's literally just the store policy, and Shelly was perfectly polite about it. But apparently to them, upholding a store policy that inconveniences them suddenly makes her the store's answer to a warden. And honestly, we're still confused about that because she seriously did nothing wrong. Okay, I'm gonna say something that I think a lot of people can agree with, especially if you spend any kind of time in retail, because I'm convinced that customers will find any reason to complain. You could be the most polite person on planet Earth, and they will still be like, "Oh, you should be working in a prison." Like seriously, Shelly didn't do anything wrong. Just because because they're following store policy and they're following, oh, I don't know, the law, doesn't mean that they didn't give you like fantastic service. Customers who complain like this are really just spoiled brats who just want to get everything they want whenever they want. And when anything's outside of their norm, then they freak out and treat you like garbage and pretend like, oh yeah, you shouldn't have a job. Because I guarantee the one time that Shelly doesn't check someone's ID, that's the time they get caught and then she gets fired. So yeah, customers like this are incredibly stupid, and honestly, Shelly did not deserve to get treated like this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for asking my friend to pay me for helping him move to another apartment? Because right now he's blown away that I would ask that, even though he charged me for snowboarding lessons not even a few weeks ago. Here's what happened. Okay, so this whole thing was about a month ago when I asked my friend, we'll call him Chris for the sake of the story, if he would be down to helping me with some snowboarding tips. For reference, he's an experienced snowboarder, and years ago he used to give private lessons as a side job. I've known Chris for maybe 15 years and we are really close friends. He was on board, so we decided we would go to the slopes one Saturday and he would basically teach me the basics. And I've been snowboarding maybe 3 times up to this point, and it's safe to say I'm not very good at it. However, he said he had one condition, that I would have to pay him for the lesson. Now, I was kind of taken aback by that, as I kind of viewed the whole thing as a friendly favor and just some time that we could spend together and do something that we both enjoy. Nevertheless, I agreed to give him the money, even though I don't really agree with this and would personally never charge a friend for something like this. Well, about 2 weeks after that, he messaged me saying he's moving flats, and he asked me if I would help him move all the furniture and boxes with stuff out of the flat and into the moving van. Now, I have to admit, I kind of saw this as an opportunity to see what would happen if I asked him to pay me for helping him. So, you know what? I did. I said, okay, what's the wage? He then laughed and I didn't say anything, and then, seeing my poker face, he said to me, wait, are you serious? I said to him, well, yeah, since you charged me for snowboarding, I would say it's fair that I charge you for this. He then went into a rant about how it's not the same thing at all, and then we got into an argument over that. So genuinely, am I the jerk here for asking for money to help my friend move? Because right now, I'm not sure if I did something wrong. Okay, honestly, I don't think you're the jerk here because this very easily could have been like an exchange of like services in some kind of way. Your friend could have easily said, hey, I'll absolutely help you out with like snowboarding lessons or whatever, but in exchange, could you help me move flats in like 2 weeks? Or something like that. Like this really could have been a situation where it's like, oh, I scratch your back and then you will scratch mine. Because sure, I totally understand that this used to be his side job or something he did just to like, I don't know, make ends meet, but it also sounds like he doesn't do this that much anymore, and you were literally just asking as a friend. So no, I don't think you're out of line for asking him to pay you for your time, because that's exactly what he did to you. And in my opinion, if he really wants to charge you for snowboarding lessons, then I think you're completely right for asking for money when he asked you to help him move. An entitled customer talks smack about the employees in front of their boss, causing all the work that was going to be done on his car to be delayed until weeks out, all simply out of spite for his awful behavior. Here's what happened. So my shop has a fair amount of drama lately due to the political climate, and my boss having to put up with stupid people questioning why our mechanics speak Spanish around customers. My boss makes it clear to these people to mind their own business, and if they want to go somewhere else, then Pep Boys, dealerships, and Walmart are in the next town over. That generally shuts them up, because a tow to the next town over is $350 one way with a bad tow truck, and it's $500 on the flatbed. Well, in comes this entitled jerk who we will call Dan, and this dude has a stick so far up his butt, it's guaranteed to stand square at an intersection. Dan drives a new Honda sedan, and somehow thinks it's the same thing as a 4x4 because he couldn't afford a truck. He basically ripped a plastic skid plate and somehow got it wrapped around one of the half sheets, making a lot of noise with a burning plastic smell. He demanded that we fix it quick because he needs to get back before he goes to LA. My boss warned him we could take it off, but there might be other damage caused by the plastic. But he didn't want to hear it, and then he turned his attention to some tech goofing off, laughing, and replying to someone in Spanish. He said something like, well, if you hired some proper mechanics, they would get stuff done faster. Well, my boss took that as incredibly disrespectful and told him right then and there that he's gonna have to wait a week, maybe even 5, just to replace the part, or he can drive it out to the next town. It's either that or he can have it towed. Well, Dan basically had to kick some rocks and leave his car, and he walked home. And now he has to wait 2 weeks for a job we finished at the end of the night last weekend, all with a replacement only costing $75, because surprisingly, he didn't do any serious damage to his car except for the plastic cover. Okay, I love this story because Dan absolutely had it coming. Just because they were joking around in Spanish doesn't mean they're not doing their job. Like, let's think about it for a second, Dan. They're probably in this job because they know what they're doing. So for you to say something like that is not only incredibly rude, but just so stupid. Like, this guy literally shot himself in the foot in terms of having any kind of good customer customer service. At that point, I don't blame you guys for being like, oh yeah, it's gonna take a couple of weeks. Because this guy was being super obnoxious, and in my opinion, he deserved to be punished. An entitled Karen demands that I no longer let my dog go to the bathroom in her yard ever again. Which is honestly an ironic statement to make, because I literally have never met this woman once in my life. Here's what happened. Earlier this week, I was walking my dog. The weather has finally warmed up to above 0 degrees after weeks of -30, so we were both very excited to get out. I was walking through a public park, basically this green space that bordered by this apartment parking lot. I know for a fact this green space is public property and not meant for the apartments only, because I work for the municipality and it is our responsibility to maintain this area. Well, this entitled Karen is parked in a truck halfway on the public sidewalk and halfway on the parking lot, and she is literally straight up blocking the sidewalk. So I end up awkwardly walking around her truck in the parking lot to get around. She then rolls her window down and calls out to me. She says to me, "Excuse me, can you do me a favor?" Now, I assumed that she was just a nice lady who needed my help really quickly, so I turned around and I said, "Oh sure, what do you need?" She then says to me, "I need you to stop letting your dog go to the bathroom in my yard." Now, I was initially confused and immediately went to apologize. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, is this part of your yard?" And I pointed at the sidewalk that I was just on. She says to me, "No, my yard's over there." And she vaguely gestures at the apartment in the opposite direction. Now, I was just kind of confused and off-put, so I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, I guess." She then says to me, "Yeah, you need to keep your dog on a leash and clean up after it. Stop letting it run around my yard." And literally right now, I'm standing there with my dog on a leash and poop bags in my hand. I say to her, "Yeah, okay, no problem." And at this point, I was really just confused and I started walking away and laughing at her because it just wasn't worth my time engaging. And right now, I'm just so baffled. I haven't walked in that area in over a month, and my dog is always on a leash. I always clean up after her. I've never seen this lady in my life, and neither me nor my dog certainly haven't been in her yard. She initially spoke to me in a really friendly tone, and then quickly became aggressive and accusatory for no real reason. She wasn't senile either. It's not like she was just some angry old lady. She was like 40 years old. The only thing I can think of is that there's a part of the green space that some dog owners have been neglecting to clean up after their pets. So maybe she's reacting that way to all dog owners. Regardless, the attitude was unnecessary. That is not her yard, and she could have just kindly asked me to make sure I clean up after my dog, because some pet owners in the area haven't been respectful of the space. And sure, maybe she got me confused with someone else that she had seen, but honestly, I could never know because she was incredibly rude. Oh man, I can't stand when people do that. If there's one thing that lights my hair on fire, it's when I get blamed for something that I did not do. If I didn't do it and I really had nothing to do with whatever's going on, when someone blames me for that, regardless of what it is, that really pisses me off in a way that I just don't think is rational, but also it's like, why are you blaming me for this? So I completely understand where the original poster is coming from. You're literally just walking your dog. You haven't been there in over a month, and this lady's trying to be like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you need to stop letting your dog crap in my yard." First of all, it's not your yard, so let's get that straight. But also, what are you talking about? I don't even live here. You're literally going to a public park to let your dog walk, and this lady's trying to be like, "Stay out of my yard." If I was in that scenario, I would be like, "Oh, that's fine. I'll totally take care of my dog. But in the meantime, can you learn how to park?" She is literally blocking the sidewalk with her stupid truck. Are you kidding me right now? This is a classic case of the pot calling the kettle black. So yeah, this Karen was out of line because the way she was acting was completely unhinged. My two entitled friends demand that anytime we go on vacation with anybody else, we are required to invite them as well, or else they would freak out and call us bad friends. And now, after I ignored this stupid rule that they imposed, they're now incredibly pissed off at me, saying that I'm an awful friend for excluding them on purpose. And right now, I honestly feel so lost and I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 22-year-old female and I have a big friend group of around 10 people. We usually get along fine and get together a few times per month. A few years ago, we tried to set up a vacation with all of us, but it didn't work out because no one could find the exact time to go. So we went with 7 people, leaving the other 3 behind. And the other 3 were fine with it and wished us to have fun. Now, this vacation was kind of weird because of 2 people specifically. Let's call them Danielle and her boyfriend Marcus. They micromanaged a lot, told us what to do and where to go at all times, which might be because it was Marcus's vacation home, and he knew the location well, but even still, it was super annoying. They got mad at me when I didn't like their chicken, and called me stupid when I had to leave 2 days earlier than the rest of us because I got an unexpected internship which I really needed for school. Overall, the vacation was moderately fun, but not something that I wanted to repeat. Now, Marcus and Danielle are very controlling in general. At one point, they even checked our locations, saw that we were hanging out with a few people, called us and asked us why we didn't invite them. Then, last year, I came up with the idea of going on vacation with a few people, and I asked in the group chat, and I said I could only bring 4 people, and the first 4 who responded went with me. Well, Danielle and Marcus were not part of this vacation and got extremely upset, calling us names and saying we weren't real friends and all this other garbage. Now, we offered to have them come along if they booked an Airbnb nearby, but they only agreed if we split the bill with them. We tried to accommodate and communicated every detail, but the booking got postponed so much that it cost us a lot extra. We're talking almost $200 each. We couldn't find a solution and decided to go without them. Well, they got very mad and said that we cannot go on vacation without including everybody. The other 3 people from the first vacation were also not going, and they were completely okay with it. It was just Danielle and Marcus who were upset. They think that because they invited us the last time, they should join now. They even imposed a rule that if a vacation includes 3 or more people, we have to invite everybody. Well, fast forward to last summer, and I found that rule stupid, and I asked my 4 best friends in this group if they wanted to go with me on vacation. And when they said yes, we started planning. My grandma surprised us for my 21st birthday by purchasing rooms in a beautiful hotel for each of us, so it was quickly decided that we would go. We knew we had to tell Danielle and Marcus somehow, because just going without telling them would make them very upset. Well, we postponed it, and 2 months went by without telling them, making it really awkward. I then finally told them kindly what the plan was, and that it wasn't intended to be rude. Well, this completely backfired. They became extremely upset. When I first told Danielle, she seemed okay with it, but then I received a text from her saying that they were actually extremely mad at me. They were upset that my friends and I didn't communicate and just booked the vacation without them. Now, we somewhat understood, but we just didn't want to go through the whole thing again like last year. And now, a few months later, they have completely cut us off. They told us that we were the worst friends ever, and that we shouldn't treat people this way, and that we needed to behave differently. So right now, I'm really curious to what others think, because maybe I really was a bad friend and I just need some perspective. What should I do? Oh man, these friends sound obnoxious. Seriously, this is taking fear of missing out to a different level. They're basically saying, you can't go on vacation without us. Don't you ever do that again. And it's like, dude, I could do whatever I want. And that really applies to your situation too. If you want to go on vacation without these people, guess what? You can do that. You are well within your right to do whatever you want with your friends, and you do not need to check in with Danielle or Marcus about anything. Like, their behavior is so weird, as if they've got to say over everything that happens in the group itself. Because for me personally, I've got a big friend group, and I do stuff with different people from that group all the time. It's not like you're excluding people, but instead you're just literally going and having fun with a set of people who are available. You still love everybody and you still go on vacations when you can, but it sounds like Danielle and Marcus are the only idiots in the group who are like, no, you've got to invite us too. So yeah, Danielle and Marcus sound incredibly weird, and in my opinion, these are not good friends in the first place. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled couple come into our restaurant literally 5 minutes before closing, and now they're demanding that we cook them some food, even though we are literally about to close and our line cooks have all gone home. But thankfully, this is just the moment that our bartender was waiting for, as they finally, for the first time in a while, got to kick them out right there on the spot. Here's what happened. Okay, so this is from the time I spent working in a kitchen. It was a restaurant right next to a music venue, and we got busy on concert weekends, but during the off-season, it could get quiet with just a few regulars. We had music nights, and the bar was usually serving drinks until close, so we would be open all year long. During a quiet late fall day after doing cleaning and checking dates, we had some apples that needed to be used for something before they went bad, so I used the opportunity to work on my pie recipe. Now, we usually don't do pie, so it was a change of pace, and it kept me busy so I would not be forced to scrub some unused corner of the restaurant. The pie was great, and the head chef said it was the best one he had ever tasted. He even took one home to eat. The kitchen closes and we clean everything and break down our stations. We put dates on our stuff and then we throw it in the walk-in. I then get to the point where I could wait out the last 10 minutes at the bar. It is about 5 minutes till closing, and I'm waiting for my ride home. Well, in walks the entitled customers of this story. 2 people for drinks at 10:55 p.m. isn't unusual, but we end up telling them that we are closing soon. They then say to us, we want food. And at this point, I stand up. I say to them, I'm sorry, the kitchen is closed, and the line cooks have all gone home. We can't serve you any food. This guy in a leather jacket then sneers at me and says, I thought this was a restaurant. So I look at him and I say, well, we have some apple pie that I made myself. I can serve that to you no charge for some dessert if you really want it. And by the way, I was using my best customer service to try and get the bartender a good tip. Well, the woman in furs replied indignantly, we want real food right now. Well, my bartender friend says unceremoniously, well, then you should probably come in before 10 o'clock. The bar is now closed, so please get out. And my friend said this as they start turning off the lights. I then walked to to the kitchen, taking the bartender's cue and start turning lights off as well. Now, I was in the walk-in when I heard the guy follow me into the now dark kitchen and say, "Seriously?" The bartender then chimes in and says, "No, that's not the door out, and I can't have you in the kitchen. Please leave the way you came in." The bartender then starts printing the end-of-night credit card reports. Now, to someone unfamiliar with the kitchen, it must have looked like I walked through the door and then vanished. Well, the couple stomped out of the bar, and I poked my head out of the fridge to turn off the parking lot lights, letting them go to their cars in complete darkness. Later, when the bartender drove me home, they told me that the couple has only been there maybe a few times, and every time they've never tipped, and they've argued the bill with the owner on more than one occasion. She had always wanted to kick them out, but when they refused free dessert to try and get food an hour after the kitchen had closed, and were so rude about it, she finally had her opportunity. The two of them never came back while I was working there, and the bartender and I ate the pie at her house and had a good laugh about it. Wow, imagine coming in 5 minutes before closing and not only demanding food from the kitchen, but also following someone like an idiot back to the kitchen and being like, seriously, are you kidding me right now? Like, that is honestly so annoying. So good for that bartender for finally getting the chance to kick them out, because from the sounds of it, they sound like really miserable people to deal with. Am I the jerk for not going on vacation with my friend and her kids, even though me and my other friend who is going on vacation plan to have just a trip away with just the two of us? Because right now, my friend with the kids is saying that this is going to ruin our friendship, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my friend, who we will call Sarah, is a single mom with 2 kids. She's been going through a rough time after separating from her husband last year, and I've done my best to be there for her. My other close friend, who we will call Lena, me and her have always accommodated Sarah's situation. We would visit her at her house so she wouldn't have to go out, or planning outings around her kids' needs, and just being as flexible as possible. Well, recently, Lena and I decided to go on a vacation together, just the two of us. When Sarah found out, she got very upset and told us that she had expected us to include her and her kids, since we are her closest friends and she doesn't have many people to travel with. She also said that because she's in a difficult situation, she thought this was something we would do for her as her friends. Lena and I explained that while we do love her and her kids, a vacation with them would be completely different from what we have in mind. We also offered to take a shorter trip with her and the kids, like a long weekend, but she dismissed that because she wanted a full week at the beach. She then said that she would have let me join if the roles were reversed, but to me, that's not a fair comparison. If I were tagging along on a vacation with her family, I'd be adapting to their plans, whereas if she came with us, we would have to plan the whole trip around her kids. Sarah has now said that she doesn't know if our friendship will survive this, which I think is an extreme reaction. I understand that she's disappointed, but I don't think it's fair to guilt trip us into changing our plans. She's also acting like we're abandoning her, when in reality, we've been incredibly accommodating for years. I feel bad that she's struggling, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's my responsibility to ensure that she has someone to travel with. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? Because right now, I'm not sure what to do. Okay, I really do understand where Sarah's coming from, but no, I don't think you're the jerk. You and Lena have every right to go on whatever vacation you want to. Like seriously, just like I've said before, there's nothing wrong with going on vacation with one other person or a group of people while also excluding someone else. It doesn't mean you don't care about them, and it also doesn't mean that you're trying to ruin the friendship. So personally, I think that Sarah's completely overreacting, and I think you're well within your right to do exactly what you want to do. My entitled manager demands my uniform back, basically implying that I no longer work there, while also demanding that I hand deliver it to him when I get the chance. So I decided to get some petty revenge by literally making this process as difficult as possible, resulting in my former boss being more angry than I've ever seen in my life. Here's what happened. So I used to work in a hotel as a porter. We had to wear white shirts and black pants, and they provided us with a uniform, which was just a nondescript black vest. I worked there part-time, but also had another part-time job at the post office. Now, I told them about the second job before they hired me. They asked me what I would do about conflicting shifts, and I said I would work for whichever company booked my time first. So if the post office said they wanted me next week from Wednesday to Saturday, and then later the hotel asked me to work that time, I'd have to say that I was unavailable. I would also naturally do the same thing if the situations were reversed. Now, I honored that agreement the entire time I worked for them, and it wasn't a problem for over a year. Then, one day I get told by the hotel that I have to work an upcoming weekend. I said I couldn't accept the shift because I had already booked one at my second place of work. My hotel boss then said, "Well, this is a huge contract, and we have a massive wedding taking place on the same weekend as our large conference, and we need all hands on deck." I then reminded them once again that I couldn't accept a shift if it conflicted with one I had previously booked. Well, my boss then got really annoyed and very pushy. They tried to say, "We have to be able to rely on you," but I reminded him that they could rely on me doing exactly what I promised in my interview, and that they had been able to rely on me for over a year. for. I also pointed out that it's not reasonable to demand that I work a shift that I hadn't agreed to work. And you know what? My boss was still pissed off when I hung up. Now, they didn't fire me, but over the next month, I couldn't help but notice I never got any shift offers. And it became obvious I was being fired, but without actually being told that I was fired. I called several times and I asked if there were any shifts, but I was always told, we have nothing for you at this time. And they said this in a really cold and nasty tone. Well, I checked with my friends who worked at the hotel, and they all said that business was normal, and they could see no reason why I wasn't being offered any shift. But you know what? It's honestly no worries. I just picked up more shifts at the post office, and they paid almost twice as much, so that's cool by me. Another couple of weeks go by, and my direct supervisor at the hotel called me to ask for my uniform and vest back. Now, I asked why, saying that I had not been fired, so as far as I know, I still work there. But my boss just sidestepped my question and refused to answer, and refused to admit that I had been fired. He just kept saying, "We need that uniform and you have to give it back." I said to him, "No problem." He then starts saying, "You can drop it off anytime." And I interrupt him by saying, "No, I won't be dropping it off." He stopped for a moment, flustered, and then said, "But you have to. It's part of your employment contract." I replied by saying, "Yes, I know. I read the contract, and it merely states that I have to return the uniform when requested. It doesn't say I have to deliver it to you, so I won't be doing that. You can send someone to pick it up at a time that is convenient to me." And also for reference, the hotel was in a different city from my hometown, so it was about a 45-minute drive to my place. Well, my now ex-boss tried to bully me, but it's funny how losing his ability to deny me work had somehow shifted our power balance. He then sputtered and stammered as he tried to figure out some way to goad or coerce me into driving the vest to him, but finally he gave up. He then said to me that he would send someone, but he said to me that he would send it sometime and that I need to be ready for whenever that is. But again, I told him no, that he would have to contact me to prearrange a time that was convenient. I said I checked my calendar and that he could call me back in a couple of days to make arrangements. And sure, I know it's really petty, but hearing the annoyance and anger in his tone as we spoke was very, very enjoyable. At the end of the day, he never did send anyone to pick up the vest, so I ended up using it as part of a Halloween costume. Man, I can't stand managers who act like this, who literally bring you on board and they're like, "Oh, we understand you have a second job," and then they try to be like, "Okay, your other job doesn't matter. You need to work for us right now. We need all hands on deck." It's like, nope, I'm sorry, that's not gonna happen. I've got other arrangements and we already agreed upon this when I got hired. And I'm sure there's some legal reason why he wasn't like, "Okay, you're fired," and was instead demanding that you hand over the uniform, basically implying that you're fired without actually saying it. So yeah, good riddance to that idiot, because that guy clearly is an awful manager. And I know for a fact that I would hate having to work for someone like that. An entitled old customer screamed in my face one too many times. So I decided to get some petty revenge by hiding his favorite food in a way that he would never find it. Here's what happened. Okay, so when I was a university student, I worked in a little supermarket for over a year. I was 19 years old at the time, and since the United Kingdom minimum wages are age-based, I was making very, very little money. We had a really complicated machine for printing and cashing lottery tickets, and any corrections and refunds had to be signed off by the manager, who, by the way, was never around when we needed him. Cashing one ticket alone took something like 15 steps. I mean, it was wild. So for the first few weeks, I was quite slow at it in order to avoid making any mistakes. Well, on my second day there, an old guy turned up, and in addition to some food, he wanted a few lottery tickets. He didn't seem to appreciate my lack of speed, and he leaned in to about 8 inches away from my face, and he screamed at me, "Yes," which is when I tried to check if the numbers I was about to print off were correct. In retrospect, it really wasn't that big of a deal, but I was young and very small, so his screaming and towering over me was enough to make me feel upset and afraid. He looked very pleased with himself for making this young girl earning a few pounds an hour tremble with fear. I already had a bit of retail experience under my belt from a prior job, but on that day, I cried in the employee bathrooms for the very first time. The job was not great, so I was brought to tears by customers a few more times during my time there. But I was broke and a fast learner, so I was always available for overtime. I ended up working about 55 hours a week, and the guy turned out to be a regular, which meant that he had absolutely known that I was new, and I got to serve him often over the next year or so. I also got the hang of things and did pretty much everything else there, from training others to keeping the refrigerator's temperatures log, ordering stock, logging and clearing waste, as well as reducing items which had reached their sell-by date. Well, one benefit was that I learned a few things about this idiot who had screamed at me, like how he was nasty to everybody who worked there, especially the younger ladies, how he was retired and seemingly not very well off, and how he appeared to keep track of food sell-by dates and would consistently turn up soon after certain meat-based items had been reduced for the final time. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being old or on a budget, but it's always a bad idea to scream at people just because you're having a bad day and they're not allowed to defend defend themselves, especially the ones who handle your food. The other benefit was that because I was working there full time, I was the one serving him 99% of the time, which gave me ample opportunities to deliver my petty revenge. And it was going to be a slow burn, just like cooking a frog, as they say. Being a broke university student, I figured that I could both stick it to him and save myself a bit of money, since food price reductions stacked with my employee discount. Now, he never screamed at me again, but for 10 months, I hid all of his nearly expired favorites behind the dairy items, and purchased them for myself once he'd left in a huff after finding them gone. I didn't even care for sausages that much, but I regularly ate something called toad in a hole out of sheer spite, and that vile jerk probably managed to buy reduced sausages maybe 5 times in 10 months. He then got visibly more and more upset over time because other shoppers had seemingly caught on to his strategy. I always nodded sympathetically. Sorry, we've sold out the last ones. Maybe try again later in the week. But you know what? I actually rather like the toad in the hole now, and I now have it as a special revenge treat. So the moral of the story is don't scream at the people who handle your food, because then you might just miss out on something that you really want. Okay, if anybody got 8 inches away from my face and screamed at me in the way that the original poster is describing, then in my opinion, the gloves are off regardless of what that job is. I don't care the circumstances, I don't care what's going on, I don't care what manager's breathing down my neck, that is so inappropriate. So sure, I totally understand where the original poster's coming from, where they were young and they just didn't know what to do, but my god, if that was me nowadays, I would absolutely say something back. Like, this guy's got such an awful attitude, I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that. And you know what, he probably was some sexist weirdo who clearly was only going after and like giving younger ladies a harder time. So honestly, I love the way you handled this. You literally took away one of the few reasons he came into this store, and you slowly made his life just a little bit more miserable overall, all because he decided to scream in your face. Because this guy deserves to get put in his place, especially by the way that he talked to everybody in that store. An entitled jerk tried to scam me while I was abroad in Rome, Italy. So I decided to get some petty revenge by throwing his scam product off a bridge in a location that would be really hard for him to retrieve it. Here's what happened. When I was in Rome, we had read about these scams that people do, one of which is trying to give you free stuff, but then guilt trip you into giving something back to them, usually money, in return. At one point, this happened, and my whole group fell for it, despite the fact that I had informed them about this. But you know what? I declined to take a bracelet. Basically, this guy comes up and asks where I'm from, and when you tell him, he makes some stupid connection between there and where he is from, and claims that you two are family. And then he offers to give you something from his family, and then ties these bracelets on your arm, which are really hard to get off. Then he asks if you have anything for his family, holding out his hand expecting something. So in this instance, my son proceeds to hand the man $20. And this is one of those situations where it's like, okay, it is what it is. He was fine with it, and this wasn't the issue. This was just me having seen this scam in process, and now I was aware of how it worked in more detail. Also, we found these same identical bracelets at a small shop like 10 minutes later for maybe 30 cents. Well, this is where the petty part of my story comes into play. The next day, I'm by myself walking by the Coliseum, and one of these guys asked me where I'm from. Knowing that he's going to try and make a connection, I say that I'm from the moon. Well, when I said that, he was really caught off guard, but he continues his pitch anyways. I tell him I'm not interested, but he just stays on me and keeps nagging me. So finally I stop and I'm like, what is it? And he says to me, I want to give you something from my family to yours, bro. That's it. And I say to him, okay, it's for free, right? And he literally confirms by saying, yes, this is for free from my family to yours. And so at this point, I'm feeling really petty because this guy's been bothering me nonstop. So I take the bracelet and I say thank you, and I immediately turn and abruptly start walking. He then dashes to catch up with me and says to me, yo bro, you got anything for my family? I say to him, no man, sorry, and I just continue walking. He then grabs me by the shoulder and looks me dead in the eye and says, give it back. And I'm like, what? But he says it again more sternly, give it back. The sales pitch nice guy voice is no more. So I was like, oh, this bracelet? Which at this point I was holding and not wearing, and at this point he holds out his hand expecting me to hand it over. I just look at him and I say, no, this is mine, you gave it to me. He says, no, it's not free. I then reminded him that he specifically said, oh, it's free from his family. He then tries to cut me off as I'm going to cross the street. He then starts swearing at me. So I take his bracelet and I huck it down a 20-foot drop onto the ground level of an area outside the Coliseum. And sure, he could still go get it, but he would have to walk all the way around the ramp and far away from me. He then starts swearing at me over and over again. He then looks like he's gonna spit on me, and I tell him that's a very bad idea. So finally, he turns and walks away. And I honestly love the fact that I ruined this guy's day even just a little bit. Yeah, I can't stand people who panhandle or like try to scam people out of money like this, because this scam is so annoying. You're literally just on vacation and you're trying to enjoy yourself, but these scammers are trying to get as much money out of you as possible. So truly, I love the way you handled this because this guy absolutely absolutely had it coming. My toxic neighbor claims that he can make as much noise as he wants by revving up his obnoxiously loud Mustang all day, every day. And even though we've desperately told them to please quiet down, these neighbors refuse to comply, forcing me to get some revenge on them in a way that they truly will never forget. Here's what happened. So last spring, my old neighbor, who was a saint, sold her house and moved away. And the people that moved in were awful. The guy, who we'll call Pete, owns some sort of new black Mustang that sounds like it has no muffler, and he revs it up and down the subdivision streets in the evening, literally 5 days a week, when a lot of people, myself included, sit on the back porch and watch TV during the summer. It is relentless. This guy also drives up and down the state highway that is on the other side of my house, doing the same thing but even louder, because there he can drive 55 miles an hour. And by the way, you can hear it for miles. On top of that, he has friends over regularly in the backyard, and they sit there on the weekends and some weeknights literally revving up the car. It truly is so loud that you cannot do anything but wait for him to be done. There was a big Facebook conversation in the homeowners association group, and a bunch of neighbors politely asked him not to do this. Well, what was Pete's exact response? He said, "I pay a lot of money for this house. I'll do what I want in my own yard," while also saying, "The streets are public." Well, I didn't like that, so here's what I did next. For a little bit of context, our subdivision has about 150 houses on about 300 acres. So basically, it's very big. Most of the properties in this subdivision are between 1 to 4 acres in size, with me having a 3-acre corner. Due to an agreed upon land split sale 10 years ago between the homeowners association, all neighbors within the vicinity, and the former owners, my next door neighbor's house is on the smallest piece of property in the subdivision, sitting at maybe half an acre. Well, I know that from 15 years of living here, anytime I have a fire on the side of the yard next to Pete's house, the smoke is guaranteed to travel in the direction of Pete's house. Now, I know this because I couldn't ever have a fire when my old neighbor was outside, as it would literally fill her backyard with smoke if ever the wood had even a hint of moisture in it. So I moved my fire pit about a dozen years ago to the other side of my house and towards the road so that I could be a good neighbor. But you know what? Pete letting me know that he wouldn't quit making noises reminded me that I just loved having my fire pit right in the middle of my backyard. And it was here that my revenge started to take place, as Pete literally regretted ever messing with me or the neighborhood. It took me a single weekend to dig up the pavers and blocks, move them back to my preferred spot, and get myself a fire going in my new fire pit. And so at this point, I just needed to wait until Pete had people over. And you know what? I made sure the inaugural fire was a good one. Pete had friends over, it was a nice day, so that's when I started the fire. I got it just about started, and then I added all the wettest, grossest wood that I could find. Well, about 10 minutes later, Pete and all of his friends were visibly upset by the stench, so all of them went inside. They came back out a little later, so I just added more wet, nasty wood. And just like that, they went in again. I kept that up the entire day, and then I added a bunch of grass clippings to keep it going overnight. The next day comes around and it's still smoldering. And guess what? It still smells awful. I put out a Facebook post on the Homeowners Association website that let people know I'd be continuing to utilize my fire pit as often as possible, so they could bring me their lawn scraps. I had about 20 people respond in a few hours, saying their clippings were all mine. And you know what? I kept that fire going. My dogs are good alarms, and they rush outside anytime anybody is in Pete's backyard. So I would hear the dogs scramble, go outside, and add more clippings. After about 3 weeks of this happening, Pete and his wife came out and very kindly asked me what was going on with the fire pit. She politely informed me that her hair would smell like campfire if she went into her backyard for any amount of time, and they could smell it coming into their house through their ductwork. He said I was making it hard for him to enjoy his backyard with his friends. They then asked me if I could ease back with the fire because I probably didn't know that it was impacting so much of their home life. And this honestly was the moment I was waiting for. I looked at him and his wife, and I said that it was clear that sometimes we didn't recognize how big of an effect something could have on our neighbors until they told us about it. But then I said, as objectively as possible, that I normally live by the same I'll do what I want with my yard thought process as Pete does, and that I have a right to enjoy my yard. At this point, I looked Pete dead in the eyes, and I said to him, "And I know you support that because of how the conversation concluded about your car, right, Pete?" He looked at me like I had scratched his favorite CD. He absolutely knew what I was doing. And when his wife looked at him, it just finally dawned on her. She said she gets it and that we won't be hearing the Mustang anymore. And all I said was thanks. I then took a gamble and I put the fire out right then and there. And you know what? It was the right call. I haven't talked to them much ever since then, and I'm not too concerned about that because I haven't heard that Mustang ever since then. So all in all, this was a really good case of getting revenge on people who absolutely deserved it. Wow, you've got to have some serious guts to sit there and be like, oh, I'm going to do whatever I want. This is my Mustang and I'm going to make as much noise as I want whenever I want. And it's like, dude, are you sure you want to play that game? Because the people in this neighborhood have been here longer than you, and I guarantee you they're going to get back at you in a way that you're not expecting. And this is the perfect example of that. This guy not only makes a horrible first impression as a neighbor, but he also decides to poke the bear and be like, oh yeah, what are you going to do about it? So truly, to the original poster, I love the way you handled this. This really is super inspiring, because this goes to show you that you absolutely do not have to put up with anybody's garbage. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for supposedly kicking a pregnant woman out of her seat, even though I was trying to claim my seat on a train that she was taking? Because right now I feel really guilty and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a few hours ago and I've only just calmed down because I hate conflict. So basically, I was doing a long travel day of about 5 hours and I decided to book my train in advance to ensure that I had a reserved seat. When I get on the train, a woman is in my seat, so I politely inform her that I think that's my seat and I show her my ticket and I ask her to move. She checks her ticket and says, well, I must have sit in the wrong seat, and then puts her head down. I say, well, it's my seat, so could you please let me sit in it? Now at this point, her partner sitting opposite of this lady starts speaking at me in what I perceive to be an aggressive tone. He suggests that I find another seat, which is not possible because it's very busy, but I say to him, look, I booked this seat. There are no other seats available in the carriage. He then raises his voice at me and says to me, well, someone's in our seat and she's pregnant. I then say that I understand and that I have a heart defect, which is true, and said that everyone has their own medical issues and reasons for standing for long periods of time and why that might be difficult. Now, it's this moment where I might be the jerk. I ask him to not speak to me in an aggressive tone and that I will make a complaint. Well, once I said that, he then starts swearing at me, and I again ask him to stop. Eventually, the woman gets up and allows me to sit there, and he continues to berate me, saying that he hopes I feel good for myself and that I'm quiet now that I have my seat, when really I just stopped engaging as I felt there was no point. One of the other men who was sat beside him offers that him and his partner sit in the seats opposite me, as this is a table seat, and at this point he sits his partner down and then laughs at me and points in my face. Eventually, when the ticket inspector comes around, they are asked to move to their assigned seats, and she asks if I'm okay as another passenger had made a complaint on my behalf. But even so, was I the jerk in this situation? Should I have just left them alone as she was pregnant? And did I in any way escalate the situation? What should I do? You are not the jerk. You did everything right. Here's the thing, on public transportation, especially when you reserve a seat, that seat is yours until the end of the ride, and not this guy or anybody else has any say in the matter. You literally just want to sit down. You didn't want to stand. You didn't want to have to go sit somewhere else. You wanted to sit there and you paid to sit there. And just because this lady's pregnant or this guy's getting pissed off is in no way justification for them to take that seat. And also, this guy is such a coward, because if his partner really was this pregnant, then why didn't he stand up and let her sit down? Like, this guy's an idiot. He would rather have you move away instead of, I don't know, finding their own seat and going there. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong, as these people truly were completely toxic. An entitled Karen comes back to my store after she made such a fuss the last time she was here after she didn't get exactly what she wanted, because now she's come back with a vengeance, treating me and my coworkers in such a way that honestly is so disrespectful. Here's what happened. Okay, so 3 days ago, I had this entitled Karen demanding that I walk with her to her cart and load her bags into her car for her. I explained to her that we do not provide that service in our store, and she then went off and cussed me out and told me that I would never amount to anything in life and that I would always be an assistant manager and not a real manager. Well, I was working at a different location and she came in and I refused to serve her. She begged and begged me to serve her, claiming that she didn't do anything to me, but I reminded her how she treated me that day. She went on and on about how she did treat me horrible that day, but she was having a bad day too as her husband was in the hospital, and stated that regardless I should serve her. But again, I told her no. Well, at this point, she crossed her arms and refused to move aside or leave, and demanded that I call the police for her. She told me that she was best friends with the police and they would arrest me for not serving her. At this point, I laughed at her because I know that was not going to happen. She then asked me if I was going to pass up the opportunity to get a total of $100 from her, and I said, you know what? Yes, because I told her that we get customers every single day spending up to $100. She then asked to see my employee card, which I do not have. And by the way, she believed that all retail employees had a special card with all of their info on it, and she just wanted to see mine. Now, when she said this, I just laughed, and I told her that we don't get employee cards. She then demanded my full name and my phone number. She said she was going to make sure I got fired and that I would never get another job ever again. But still, I told her no. She then demanded to see the store manager, but he wasn't there, so she demanded decided that I get her another worker to serve her. Now, my cashier was outside on her break, and so I told her that we're not going to serve her. Well, after I said that, she actually went outside to bother my cashier, and she was trying to convince her to serve her. But thankfully, my cashier told her no, that's not going to happen. She then told my cashier that she apparently filed a police report against me from the other time that she was in our store, and she then came back in standing by her cart, and I was serving another customer. Now, at this point, she started to cry and was telling the customer that she did nothing wrong and that she was just a poor old innocent lady that I refused to help for no reason. I told her that she wasn't innocent, and I explained how she treated me, and the customer agreed with me and said I had every right to not serve her. At that point, I was starting to realize that she wasn't going to leave, so I called 911, but as soon as she saw me on the phone explaining to the dispatcher what was happening, she finally left. And you know what? I was surprised that she did that, because I thought that she wanted to stick around and talk to her friends, who she seriously claims are the police. Okay, so this is a story that we covered the other day on this channel, and my god, this lady just keeps getting worse and worse. The first time she was in that store, she was acting like a complete nut job, but now it's clear that she's like kicking it up another level, and that is honestly so weird, because just look at the way she's acting. Like, does she have no shame in the way that she's acting towards everybody around her? I will literally never understand why people act like this. So yeah, that Karen's crazy, and I really hope she never comes back. And hopefully the police get involved, because her behavior is truly unhinged. Am I the jerk for avoiding my mom after she told me to suck it up when I broke my fingers at the gym? Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I was at the gym where a heavy weight fell onto 3 of my fingers on my left hand. I was in such severe pain that I thought I was going to pass out. While I was sobbing, I called my mom, and it's important to know that I'm at college and I'm far away from home. I told her that I thought I broke my fingers and that I wanted to go to an urgent care. Now, my mom has never been empathetic for physical injuries or mental health issues. When she heard me, she told me to suck it up and rest. So I figured I would wait for a while. I mean, who knows? She could be right. Now, as a side note, I feel the need to mention that my fingers did not look deformed. So, other than bruising and swelling, I was unsure if they were broken or not. While I was waiting, my roommate came home and saw the state that I was in. She took one look at my hand and assured me that we needed to go to urgent care. Now, I didn't want to betray my mom, because she always said to never go to the ER or urgent care due to our terrible insurance. However, I went and researched the cost of an out-of-pocket x-ray at the nearest urgent care, and it was only $200, which I was willing to pay. I told my mom this, and she said, well, you better hope your finger's broken, or else I'm not going to help you pay for anything. So I was under a weird circumstance where I hoped my fingers were broken for the sake of saying, well, I told you so to my mom. I finally went to the urgent care and I got an x-ray, and they confirmed that both my pointer and middle fingers were broken, and that I may need surgery if not healed properly. When I called back my mom later that day and told her the news, she basically laughed at me and told me that I should be glad that they're broken. Well, 3 weeks have gone by and I've not spoken to her since. She has texted me and asked for updates on my fingers, but I feel conflicted on why she's suddenly acting like she cares when she clearly didn't in the first place. She's also not someone you can easily share your feelings with, so I'm not sure how to go about our next conversation. Should I just ignore it, or should I try to bring it up with her? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh wow, your mom is really not a nice person. Seriously, who in their right mind would be like, oh, I really hope your fingers are broken. If not, I'm not gonna pay for any of this. It's like, dude, are you kidding me right now? Wouldn't you want your kid to be in good shape and not have 3 broken fingers on their hand? Like seriously, this lady sucks so much. So no, you're not the jerk for avoiding your mom, because I think if I was in your shoes, I would have done the same thing, because her behavior is unbelievably toxic, and you did not deserve that treatment in the slightest. An entitled couple next door to my hotel room refused to keep down the noise, despite me asking them politely to please keep it down, as I have work in the morning at 5:30. But after they kept me up until 1 o'clock in the morning, I decided to get some revenge by making it so they would never get any sleep anytime soon. Here's what happened. A few years ago, I was staying in a hotel room in suburban Detroit. I was a Navy reservist on my drill weekend. On Saturday night, this couple shows up in the adjoining room with a buddy and their probably 6-year-old kid. I think nothing of it until it's about 10 o'clock p.m. and 2 more people show up. And now, at this point, it's a party. They were being obnoxious, so I knock on the door and I ask them to keep it down and that I have work in the morning. Well, they responded in a way that honestly really pissed me off. They said to me, "We're not even being loud. How can you hear us?" I respond by saying, "Well, bro, I'm in the room next to you. There's a door between our rooms. I can hear you clearly." They then just said, "Yeah, okay," and then closed the door in my face. 45 minutes later, they're just as loud as they had been, so I call the front desk. I then hear the neighbor's phone ring, and once he hangs up, he says, "Oh, if he thinks we're being loud now, just wait till later." They then continue to party and are obviously being loud on purpose in spite of me. Eventually, I got tired enough and I fell asleep at about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I then woke up at 5:30 to get get ready for work. Well, this is where my petty revenge comes into play. I plug the alarm clock into the socket near the adjoining door. I put the speaker against the door they can't open. I put the radio between stations. I crank up the volume to max, and I set the alarm for 5 minutes after I leave the room. And honestly, I can picture them panicking and being furious at not being able to stop it. And I truly would have given anything in the world to see their reaction. I love this story so much because trust me, I think we've all been there, where we hate our neighbors and they're making a lot of noise or they're disturbing us in some kind of way. You really did the right thing by saying, hey, I'm trying to get some sleep, I've got work in the morning, can you please keep it down? But for them to come back at you and basically double down and be like, oh, you think we're being loud now, just wait till later. Like, that's so toxic. Like, dude, just be a reasonable human being, turn down the volume, shut up just a little bit, and then everybody gets to go to work in the morning and be fine. So truly, I love the way you got back at these people because in my opinion, they absolutely deserve it. My entitled, idiotic managers refuse to uphold store policy, leaving me quite literally alone in trying to figure all of this out. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work for a small, local, family-owned pet supply store. The managers there are very young and have a difficult time upholding store policies. So what happens is the store manager or owner will send out messages telling store associates that we are not supposed to allow customers to stack store coupons or discounts. Now, the unwritten store policy is only one store discount per transaction. Now, it seems pretty straightforward, right? Well, that is until the customer walks up to the register with a fistful of coupons, and I say, I'm sorry, I can't apply all of these coupons per our store policy. And then the customer will say something like, well, when did that go into effect? And I say, it's been a policy since I started working here. I then call for the manager on duty, and I explain to her what's happening. Well, without even saying a word to the customer, the manager on duty says just to give it to him. Now, luckily, I wasn't the actual cashier on this transaction, and I was only called over to help the cashier apply one of the 3 discounts that she had given the customer. I walked the cashier through the last discount, and then the customer leaves. I then explained to her that our store manager would have never allowed that transaction ever. The following morning, I give my store manager a copy of the receipt, and I tell her I tried to stop the transaction, but it was completely overruled. And the store manager acknowledges that my understanding of the store policy and how long it's been in effect is correct. She also states that everything about this transaction was completely wrong. She then proceeds to tell me how supposedly the customer came back after his transaction to find another manager on duty to complain about my attitude. I made 3 separate attempts to have a conversation with the store manager regarding the alleged complaint, but every time I tried to talk to her, she literally walked away from me. And by the time my shift was over, I was beyond pissed. Fast forward to yesterday, and there is now a notice posted on the registers facing the customer explaining only 1 store discount per transaction is allowed, and that customers are being instructed to talk to a manager if there are questions. And I'm just sitting there like, are you kidding me right now? This has happened to me so many times. I just don't know what to do anymore. I've had so many conversations with the store manager and owner about this particular issue that I am befuddled as to why I'm still having these conversations 2.5 years later. What should I do? Okay, I've been in this scenario, and honestly, the best thing that I did was find another job. You know you have a bad manager or a bad owner when instead of following their own store policy, they throw you under the bus by making you look bad. Or they don't even follow the policy themselves and you're the only one doing it. And even worse is if you don't follow the policy, then you're in trouble, but they can run around doing whatever they want whenever they want. And it's like, yeah, you're basically being thrown under the bus no matter what you do. And that is so unfair. It really is not fair at all. So truly, I hope this works out for you because this really does sound like a nightmare, as this is not a scenario that you deserve in the slightest. Today at my job, for the first time ever, I was faced with a problem that I did not know how to solve. And this has now really shaken me up to my core, and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So at the grocery store I work at for almost 9 years now, we have an instant scratch ticket machine, and it didn't print someone's ticket, and my brain literally froze for a minute. Have you ever had one of those times where you sort of know what to do, but you're not entirely confident and you're too afraid to do that thing? So you call someone for assurance because you worry you'll make things worse? Because that's what was going through my head. Anyway, I checked to make sure that no money was stuck or tickets were stuck, and from what I could see, they weren't. So I thought to just take the ticket that she wanted, but as I'm not the manager nor the supervisor, I really didn't want to screw something up as I was by myself and I was really panicking. Anyway, so I just gave the woman the tickets after getting an okay from a manager to do so. And again, I had never done this particular thing before, and I didn't want to screw something up. And I explained to her that I just wanted to wait for an okay from my manager, that giving her the ticket was fine, and the woman just kept getting irritated with me. I then told her over and over again, thank you for your patience, and I apologize for the inconvenience. Anyways, I gave her her tickets, and she grabbed them out of my hand and walked out the door. Even after I apologized multiple times for the inconvenience. And now I'm anticipating her possibly calling to complain about me, or that I screwed something up even more. And I'm anxious over possibly getting in trouble, or I'm worried my boss will think I'm an idiot or something like that. I know it's probably lame or sad to care so much about a part-time job, but I'm worried I'll come to work tomorrow to a complaint, or people at work thinking that I'm stupid. I really hate how anxious the part-time job I've been at for almost 8 years can still make me feel. But it was so frustrating, and the woman was just standing there while I was trying to figure out what to do, and I felt bad bothering other coworkers who were at home at 7:30 at night. What should I do? Honestly, the second you got that approval from a manager is the second you can no longer feel guilty about this. Because if you really do have a complaint or any kind of feedback of oh, you did this wrong, then I would point to my manager and be like, wait, they said I should do it this way. And then that way you can have your bases covered. Because honestly, in my opinion, there's nothing worse than having a manager who tells you to do it one way and then will willingly throw you under the bus and be like, I never showed you how to do it like that. So the fact that you ask somebody for help, in my opinion, is the smartest decision to make. Because that way you can be sure for a fact that you're doing it correctly. My boyfriend of 10 years confessed to me that he has been cheating on me with his best friend who's also our roommate. And now after I found out the truth, my boyfriend's asking if he can stay with me as well as his best friend at the same time. And at this point, I'm honestly disgusted and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend, who we will call Nick, has been with me for about 10 years and we are high school sweethearts. And I truly believe that we were building a life together. 2 summers ago, we moved into a small 1-bedroom apartment and his best friend, who we will call Liam, basically became a permanent resident. He crashed on our couch nearly every night, left messes everywhere, and acted like he lived there. And honestly, I hated it. But Nick kept brushing off my concerns, saying Liam just needed a place to hang out. After a year of this, we decided to move into a slightly bigger place so that Liam could have his own room instead of hogging our living room space. I thought this would fix things, but as soon as we moved in, Nick started spending every night in Liam's room playing video games. At first, I thought it was just guys being guys. They had been close since they were little, and I was just happy that Nick was able to spend more time with his close friends. But then, entire nights would go by where I wouldn't even see my own boyfriend, and sometimes he wouldn't come to bed at all. Other times, he'd go straight from Liam's room to work the next day. I kept telling myself that I was overthinking things, that Nick and Liam had been best friends forever, and I was being irrational or something like that. But deep down, I knew something felt wrong. Then, after months of emotional distance and our relationship slowly crumbling, Nick finally came clean in a way that truly has shattered me beyond anything I could possibly describe. As he told me that he's been sleeping with Liam almost every single night. He said he was cheating on me with his childhood best friend for months. And here's the kicker. He claims he still loves me, but he also loves Liam, and he wants us to continue our relationship with Liam included. I feel betrayed, confused, and honestly disgusted. I can't even process what I'm supposed to do. I feel like this is unforgivable. He's acting like this is just something I should adjust to. Like I should be grateful he's even including me in his new relationship. I feel like a third wheel in my own home, but I also feel like if I walk away, I'm throwing away 10 years of my life, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this is crazy to me. Your boyfriend's cheating on you with his childhood best friend, while also saying like, oh, we can keep our relationship going while I sleep around with my best friend on the side. It's no big deal. Like this guy is out of his mind if he thinks this is okay. So yeah, I think the fact that you feel this is unforgivable and that you are disgusted and confused and feel completely betrayed is absolutely rational. Like you're the only rational person in this entire house. And I know for a fact if I was in your position, I would never take this sitting down. I would never be okay with my partner cheating on me with their best friend who's also a roommate. And it kind of makes me wonder how long this was going on. Like seriously, this doesn't just happen overnight. This is clearly something that's been boiling in the background for a while now. And I bet when Liam moved in, that's exactly the time they decided to be weirdos and be like, oh yeah, we could keep our relationship going, but also I'll keep my girlfriend around too. Like seriously, this is so messed up, it's not even funny. So no, you didn't do anything wrong, and yes, you absolutely have every right to be disgusted by this, because your boyfriend is cheating on you actively and currently with another guy in your own home, and that is not something that anybody should ever have to deal with. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for wearing my wrist brace at work while my coworker has a broken wrist as well? Because right now another coworker is really giving me problems about this, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this was a really weird situation. I'm a 24-year-old female and I work as a cashier at a sub place, and my coworker last week broke her wrist falling on the ice, so she now has a cast on. Now for reference, when I was 14 14 years old, I was diagnosed with tendinitis in both wrists. And for the most part, it doesn't flare up unless I'm doing a lot with my hands. Well, I've been doing a lot of embroidery recently, and as such, I've caused a flare-up. It's been bothering me for about 2 weeks, and I wear my brace at home, and generally speaking, just kind of sucked up the pain while at work. Because with my coworker wearing a cast, I felt weird about wearing my brace. Well, yesterday it was bad enough that I had to wear it at work. As I'm putting my stuff down and getting ready to start my shift, another one of my coworkers, who we will call Lisa, started to glare at me. She then asked me in her usual snobby tone that she uses with me, "What is that for?" So I told her about my tendinitis and what it was. But then she started getting all huffy as if I was making it up. Mind you, the coworker who has the broken wrist didn't care. She didn't say anything. But for the rest of my shift, Lisa kept giving me dirty looks, which is not out of the norm. I mean, she just doesn't like me. Close to the end of the shift, I had to use the bathroom. And being as it's hard to do so with a wrist brace, I took it off. After coming out and washing my hands, I was putting the brace back on when Lisa made another offhanded comment about how I was so lucky that I could take mine off. Now, I didn't do this to spite anyone. My wrist just hurts, but now I'm getting ready for another shift, and I'm trying to decide if I should just suck it up and go without my brace at work. So seriously, would I be the jerk to wear one? Because honestly, I don't know what to do. First off, no, you are definitely not the jerk. Lisa is a busybody with nothing better to do with her life. Like seriously, that's all this comes down to. She is just some loser who's clearly obsessed with hating you. And she's trying to make this into something that it absolutely is not. Because here's a fun fact, everybody in the office could walk in with a wrist brace and it would still not be any kind of shot at the coworker who broke their arm. Like there really is no equivalency here. The fact that she has a problem with this says more about her than it does about you. And the fact that the coworker who did break her wrist is like, look, it's fine, I have no problem with it. Like in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be like, fine, they're cool with it, then I'm gonna be cool with it. Because Lisa does not have your best interests in mind, and I guarantee you she's trying to mess with you simply because she doesn't like you. Am I the jerk for how I reacted to my husband's ex-wife's girlfriend buzzing my stepson's hair? Because right now, this entire situation feels incredibly overblown, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to explain the relationships here, I married my husband, who we will call Alex, about a year ago, and we've been together for 4 years. He was previously married, and after they had agreed to divorce, she told him that she was pregnant. And for the sake of the story, we'll call this ex-wife Kate. Kate had been cheating on Alex with someone we will call Jessica, who's a 32-year-old female, for about a year. I had known Alex for years through mutual friends, and I met his son when he was about 6 months old. So now, back to the present day. Kate and Jessica are together still, but very hot and cold. I went to pick up my stepson from school. Jessica had dropped him off, and he seemed really quiet and sad. I asked him what was wrong, and he said he was sad because he had no hair. For reference, he has beautiful curly hair, and he told us that he wanted to grow it out into a mullet. At that time, my husband cleared it with his mom that they were both okay with that, and she agreed to have me trim it as needed, like around his ears. Well, he took off his hat and it was buzzed down to his scalp. I was shocked, but I also just said, well, I think you look very handsome, but I thought you wanted to grow it out. Why did you cut it? Well, apparently Jessica was going to trim it and forgot to put the guard on. And when she realized that, it was too late, and she had to buzz it. When we got home, I called Kate. She didn't know how bad the haircut was and was tied up at a work event. She suggested I make sure I get the whole story on what happened. So with her permission, I went right to Jessica after I called my husband, who was driving home from a couple of hours away, and explained what was going on. So I called Jessica, asked to verify what he had said, and tell her how upset he was. She said that is exactly what happened, but didn't see why it was such a big deal. She kept saying that I'm overreacting and that it's just hair. So I tried to explain that as a kid, there is so much that he just doesn't get a say in. So it was a big deal to him. I then told her that she should never go near his head with clippers ever again. Well, she came back with, well, you're not his mom. And when I reminded her that she wasn't either, she said to me, well, I'm a lot closer than you are. I've been there since day one. To which I said, yeah, because you were an affair partner. Don't cut his hair ever again. And then I hung up the phone. I then called my husband back to explain everything, and I calmed down. And he had been on the phone with Kate discussing things as well. I also texted Kate to give an overview and say I was sorry if I overreacted. It's now the next day, and Jessica is trying to tell Kate that I shouldn't be allowed to cut his hair if she can't, and that I need to get my parenting privileges taken away. And I honestly just think that's crazy. And just to clarify my role as a step-parent, Kate and my husband meet twice a year alone to discuss parenting things. And at the last one, Kate said she is comfortable with seeing me as a parent and is ready to include me in the meetings going forward. So am I the jerk for getting upset with Jessica for not only buzzing his hair, but for how she reacted trying to minimize it? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you try to have a rational conversation, but then Jessica was the one who decided to try and insult you, and that, in my opinion, is not okay. Because in my opinion, at that point, the gloves are off. You want to start going there, then let's go there. Because this could have been a mature conversation. This could have been worked out really easily, everybody could have walked away happy, but instead, Jessica decided to get toxic and then tries to be like, oh, you need to take away her parenting rights. And it's like, oh, okay, you're that pissed off that she got one over on you. So no, you didn't do anything wrong, but this really is a messy situation. And hopefully this all works out for the stepson, because this entire argument, in my opinion, is incredibly silly. Am I the jerk for taking my dad home after missing a train instead of waiting for the next one to go on a family outing? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my dad, my sister, and I were supposed to take a train downtown for a car show. I was the one who arranged and paid for everything, since I thought it would be good family time. I told him to be ready by 12:15 p.m. so that we would have enough time to drive to the station and park before the train arrives at about 1 o'clock p.m. The drive is about 25 minutes, so my thinking was that I would have about 49 minutes to drive to the station and figure out parking and get to our terminal. I had also never been to this station, so I just wanted to have extra time in case things go wrong. He said that he would come out to the car at 12:15 p.m. So my sister and I got to his house at 12:10 and we just waited. He then didn't come out of his house until 12:31 p.m. I told him that we would be late, but he said that we were fine since it was only a 25-minute drive. We arrived at the station at 12:55 p.m. and here's where the first problem came up. We could only find reserved parking spots. So we had to park in a reserved spot so that I could get out of the car and go find somebody to ask where the regular lot was. Well, it turns out nobody is in the customer support area as it is a holiday, and at this point it's 1 o'clock. Then my dad saw a security officer in the lot and told me to go ask him where the regular lot was, to which he told me that it was at the other side of the road. So I park up in the regular lot and run back to the boarding area where my dad and sister were waiting, but the doors of the train literally closed as it was about 20 meters from the train. Well, my dad and sister didn't board as they saw that I couldn't make it. I was upset but willing to let it go as there was another train coming in an hour, and then everything got heated. My dad got mad at me for missing the train because I should have known where to park instead of wasting time in the reserve lot looking for the regular lot. And at this point, I was super mad. I told him that the reason I wanted to come early was because I didn't know the station and where everything was. And since he was late, we didn't have enough time. He said I should have researched the parking lot before coming, and we then got into an argument which eventually got very bad. At this point, I didn't even want to go to the car show as I was so pissed at him for blaming me. I told him that I would wait in the car and that he and my sister could go to the show and that I'll pick them up when they come back. He then called me selfish as he and my sister got ready for this family outing just for me, and that he wanted me to come on the next train as we already made the drive over to the station. I told him no because I was in tears from the argument, and I wasn't in the mood to spend an entire day with him after he said terrible things to me for something that he did. Eventually, he got in the truck and we headed home. He told me to never speak to him again as I was selfish and I wasted his time, and he will hold the grudge for at least a month. So seriously, am I the jerk for taking him home instead of going on the next train after he was late and tried to blame it on me? Because seriously, at this point, I don't know what to do. No, you're definitely not the jerk because this really would have pissed me off. Maybe I'm alone on this one, but I do not like being blamed for something that is not my fault. That seriously sets my hair on fire and I really don't like it, especially when it's coming from the person who actually is the problem. If your dad had simply come outside when he said he was going to, you guys would have had just enough time to make it on the train. You would have had time to park, get to the station, and be ready to go. So for him to be like, oh wow, this is your fault for not researching it better, it's like, no dude, this is your fault for not being outside on time. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and the fact that he's trying to pin this on you, in my opinion, is unacceptable. I'm currently seriously considering ending my engagement and my relationship with my fiance after he yelled at me in a way that I've not seen since my last awful relationship, because right now I feel very scared and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I went out with my fiance on Valentine's Day, and my gift was going to this thing called Martini Wars, and I think this was something on Eventbrite that he found last minute. It was a battle between bartenders and, as you can imagine, a lot of drinking. Well, things were going fine until the ride home. In the Uber, his tongue was hanging out of his mouth, his eyes were rolled back, his head bobbing back and forth, and I was afraid he was going to vomit in the car. So I kept the windows down and I tried to comfort him. We made it home fine, but then he became very obstinate. He refused to listen, he was still borderline sick, so I kept telling him to move to the toilet. Well, he wouldn't budge from the spot of the bathroom he was sitting at, and he vomited all over the floor. I then became upset at how unnecessarily defiant he was being. But then, at some point, he became angry and showed me a side that I've never seen from him him in the 5 years I've known him. He began screaming at me and didn't back down. For reference, I was in an awful relationship beforehand, and it triggered the worst memory of that relationship. I begged and pleaded with him to stop yelling, but he just wouldn't do it. At some point, he left the room, and I took the opportunity to get a hotel that night. Well, fast forward, and I woke up in the hotel to a text message of his saying that he didn't remember anything, but he was very sorry. But I stayed away from him all this weekend. But since he's returned home, he's done nothing to make amends for his transgressions. I then told him the engagement was off, and he accepted it. He avoids me around the house, and he doesn't try to connect with me at all. I guess the worst part about this is that Wednesday nights are supposed to be date nights. Yesterday, he told me he was going out with his boy and asked if I wanted to go, and I feel like he doesn't even care how much he hurt me, and he doesn't even want to fight for the relationship. I know I'm coming to this one-sided, but I'm wondering if there's any salvaging of this relationship. If you were in his shoes, what steps would you take to show that you were serious about the fact that you hurt your fiance? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Oh man, this really is sketchy because I don't blame you for not wanting to be around your fiance. And I think it's so ironic that he's like, oh, I don't remember anything, but I'm really sorry as well. But it's like, wait a second, you clearly remember something if you're apologizing. Like, what's going on right now? Just own up to it and try to make amends. Saying you're sorry in some kind of loose apology is not gonna cut it. So truly, I'm so sorry that this happened to you because you do not deserve this. Your fiance is completely out of line for treating you this way, and I think you have every right to be reconsidering this relationship as a whole. Am I the jerk for not refunding the bachelorette party group after $3 per person came back from a massage that got canceled? Because right now my friends are being super weird and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I took on the daunting task of organizing a bachelorette party for my best friend. Knowing she preferred a classy celebration over the typical bar scene, I meticulously planned a sophisticated yacht dinner cruise. I made sure to invite everyone the bride had asked for. I coordinated the yacht director to arrange meals, a private suite, drinks, a message for the bride, and hotel accommodations. I shared all the details and costs with the group, and everyone agreed and promptly sent me their portions. However, just a week later, a friend of the bride whom I had never met before messaged me. She couldn't attend because she got a new puppy and wanted a refund. And it's like, seriously, a new puppy? I couldn't think of a crappier reason not to show up for one of your closest friends. By that time, all payments were finalized, and refunding her would either mean covering her share myself or asking the group to contribute more money. After explaining that to her, she shot back sarcastically, suggesting, well, how about you just keep the money and make sure the bride has a good time? We eventually agreed to use her meal credit towards an extra bottle of alcohol for the group. As the event approached, I added personal touches like disposable cameras and decorations, and effectively spending additional money from my own pocket without asking the group for additional payments. The bride invited a few of us to stay with her in the hotel room we had collectively paid for. Initially, 4 of us planned to stay, but 2 friends backed out last minute to sleep at home with their boyfriends instead, leaving just the bride and me. Some group members later insinuated that they had paid for a hotel room for just the bride and me, which wasn't the original plan. On the day of the event, we enjoyed the yacht cruise and it was nice. The following morning, we had a massage scheduled, but the bride was incredibly sick and really just wanted to sleep. I canceled with a therapist who kindly waived the cancellation fee, and as a courtesy, I sent her a portion of the cost of the service. The remaining amount from the massage offset the extra expenses that I had previously covered out of my own pocket. I broke almost exactly even, with maybe a $3 refund for each after doing the math. But I didn't even bother with it, as I figured $3 was nothing. Well, about a week later, another one of the bride's friends questioned me why she hadn't received a refund for the canceled massage. I explained the situation, detailing the cancellation fee and the additional costs that I had personally covered, which all balanced out. She then accused me of using group funds for my own benefit and questioned the overall expenses, despite having previously agreed to them. I then clarified that the hotel room was intended for multiple people, but others had chosen not to stay. I then sarcastically offered to refund her $3 from the extra that I had acquired, but she refused. Planning group events is already frustrating enough without having to defend myself over every single dollar. I never asked anyone for extra money, and every detail of the original cost was spelled out for everyone. I broke almost exactly even after the massage was canceled, considering the extra out-of-pocket expenses I paid for. So am I the jerk for not providing full $3 refunds and using the remaining funds to cover my expenses? Because right now, I'm honestly not sure what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. These people suck. Seriously, it seems like they're trying to nickel and dime you, while also finding every opportunity to show how ungrateful they are about this entire situation. Like seriously, this would be so frustrating if I was in your shoes. Here you are going out of your way to schedule all this crap for these people, and they're literally being so unappreciative of all the things you've done for them. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your friends are being weird, and I don't blame you for being frustrated with their actions. Am I the jerk for telling my friend to go to a food bank, as she's going through one of the hardest times financially she's ever gone through in her life? Because right now she's very pissed off at me for suggesting that, and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have a friend who we will call Sally for the sake of the story, who has been going through some tough times. Sally split from her boyfriend last year when she caught him cheating. They had been together for over 2 decades, and he was very wealthy. Sally was a homemaker while they were together, and when they split, she was left with literally nothing. Ever since the split, she has been relying on the kindness of friends to get by. She has mostly been staying with one friend in particular, but lots of friends have been pitching in to help her meet her needs. Currently, she is attempting to support herself by trying to find work as a freelance artist, which she refers to as hustling, but most of the money that she makes immediately goes back into art supplies. I live in a different state from her currently, and I'm barely scraping by myself with a child to care for, so I have not been able to help her financially. Instead, I just try to be a sympathetic ear for her to vent to, and I've let her know that I don't mind her venting to me. It is also important to know that when she was with her ex, they would often help their friends make ends meet financially, and she has helped me and my family more than once. Yesterday, we were talking on the phone, and she mentioned that she couldn't afford any food. She said that for the past few days, she's been barely eating anything, and she doesn't want to ask the friend she is staying with for food because she feels that friend is already doing too much. I then mentioned that she should try looking into some kind of local food banks in her area, and she became extremely offended. She said to me, "You know, you would think with all the people I've helped over the years that I wouldn't have to turn to that. It is embarrassing." I then told her that I wish I could help her myself, but I've only got $100 until the next payday, and I have to put my child first. I offered to help her by doing some Googling for her just for her options, but she insisted that taking food from a charity was embarrassing and unacceptable. But I reminded her that everyone goes through difficult times, and it's not embarrassing to ask for help. I then asked her if she had looked down on her friends who had needed help over the years, and she said that she didn't, but that she just wasn't used to being the person in need. She then ended the call saying she needed to get back to work, and I really got the feeling that I offended her. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I'm not sure what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. If Sally really is having a hard time and things are not working out for her, then going to a food bank is absolutely okay. It's the people that go there knowing that they don't need help, but take food anyways that truly are the problem. And we've covered a few people who do that, and those people are the scum of the earth. But Sally in this story doesn't sound like that kind of person. She seems like someone who's clearly just having a rough time and she could use the help. So no, you're not the jerk for suggesting that, because that is a legitimate way for her to get help. And if she really is offended by that, then that is something that she is going to have to figure out. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.